Chapter 1049. She spoke coquettishly, and her palm tore through the air. What Lin Yin used was a palm technique that no one in the game had seen before. The wind from her palm was like smoke and clouds. It floated toward the target, making it impossible to evade. However, the attack that a normal person would not be able to evade, Feng Bujue could. The way he evaded was very simple. He just leaned backward and fell into a free fall and landed outside the courtyard wall. What the? So, there's a reason for him to leave the door open and climb up the wall? I thought he was like a wild horse, and he was just trying to look cool from a high vantage point. Actually, that might not be the case. Perhaps he was just trying to look cool, and now he is just adapting to the situation, and he used the terrain to his advantage. Who knows? Are you sure this is not part of his plan? He is Feng Bujue. Yes, that is Feng Bujue. From the perspective of the livestream viewers, Brother Ju had been demonized. No one could tell what was on his mind, and no one could tell whether his actions were spontaneous or calculated. In a way, a player like Feng Bujue was the nightmare of professional analysis teams. Eunuch Xiao, I do not understand. Several seconds later, Feng Bujue's voice came from outside the courtyard wall again. This time, he walked in from the front door. As he walked, he said, "Back then, you helped deal with Lin Chong as well. Could it be that you have hidden this from Miss Lin? What do you think?" Chao Qin asked with a smile. I do not think you need to do that." Feng Bujue walked past the group of martial artists who were meditating and continued his conversation with Chao Qin. "You are right, there is no need." Chao Qin added, "The first day I met Lin Yin, I told her everything that happened at Chonglin Town, including the cause and effect of the whole thing and what her father did. As for the rest, I'll leave it to her to make her own judgment." "That's strange." Feng Bujue walked in front of everyone and stood next to his teammates and Yuan Shi. "Since you know everything," he looked at Lin Yin and asked, "Why don't you seek revenge on Eunuch Xiao? Godfather was just fulfilling his duty, and he didn't attack my father directly," Lin Yin replied. "It was your broken sword Chahitsu who attacked him." As she spoke, she turned her gaze to Yuan Shi and the experts from various sects and clans. "And the ones who forced my father and my entire family into a dead end are these so-called heroes and swordsmen of the martial arts world." When she said the last 8 words, her tone was obviously filled with sarcasm and resentment. Her hatred for Feng Bujue was incomparably pure, but her hatred for these people also carried a strong sense of disdain. Ha ha. After hearing that, Feng Bujue was silent for half a second before he started to laugh. Those who were familiar with Brother Jun knew that this kind of laughter was most likely a sign of logical rape coming. What a joke. Feng Bujue placed his hands on his waist and yelled at Lin Yin. "Based on what you said, I didn't attack your father directly." He opened his arms. "Your father was killed by one of my guests with a super long-range weapon. What does that have to do with me? You said it yourself that it was your guest who killed him. So how can that have nothing to do with you?" Lin Yin demanded. "Of course. She's her, and I am me. You should go after the person who killed him." Feng Bujue crossed his arms before his chest and replied smugly, "Isn't that obvious? For example, if the government has a few 100,000 soldiers, and one of them has committed a crime, of course, we should go after him. Don't tell me that you would go after the general just because a small soldier committed a crime." Lin Yin wanted to refute, but she couldn't find any loopholes in his words. Therefore, she could only shout, "That's not the same thing." "Then why don't you tell me how it's different?" Feng Bujue asked. Lin Yin's face turned red. The more anxious she was, the more she couldn't find a reason. She had no choice but to continue. "Then, what about the person who killed my father?" "Dead," Feng Bujue answered without thinking, as if he had been waiting for her to ask. "It's been more than 40 years. She's long dead." "Impossible," Lin Yin continued. "You think I don't know that the martial arts of broken sword Chahitsu have the effect of eternal youth?" "Yes, it does." Feng Bujue nodded. "But I didn't say that she died of old age. Can't she have an accident?" "Nonsense. Who would believe you?" Lin Yin said angrily. "It's up to you to believe it or not," Feng Bujue said and looked at Chao Xen. "Eunuch Xiao, you can testify." Among the guests I brought this time, is Miss Xiao Ling there? Yes. Chao Xian's attitude was as calm and objective as usual. Indeed, she isn't. See, she isn't. Feng Bujue tilted his head and continued. She's not here, but it doesn't mean that she's dead. Lin Yin said again. Fine. Feng Bujue shrugged. If you insist that she's still alive, then I have nothing to argue with you. This vast land, the ends of the earth. If you have the ability, go and find her yourself. By the way, do you want me to draw a portrait for you? How dare you? Lin Yin was furious. You're shameless. You push the blame to a dead person when you encounter trouble. What kind of man are you? We're talking about the truth now, not my character, Feng Bujue said. Besides, I never said that I was a man. He smiled and said to Lin Yin, no one said that I was a man. Didn't you say that I was shameless? That was how he was. When someone said one sentence, he could immediately say 3 sentences, and he could even say it reasonably. But even if I'm a shameless person, you have to be clear about one thing. I didn't kill your father. Damn it, Lin Yin shouted again. She really couldn't win against Brother Ju in terms of words. It doesn't matter if you killed him or not. I want you to die today. When a person's obsession reached a certain level, right and wrong, truth and falsehood, it didn't matter to her anymore. More than 40 years of hatred, more than 40 years of persistence, and the desire for revenge had accompanied Lin Yin for her entire life. If she denied all of this now, it would be the same as deciding her entire life. Therefore, she couldn't be persuaded from the very beginning. Feng Bujue was naturally aware of this. He said all these things just to mess with Lin Yan's emotions. He wanted to make this boss that he was destined to face easier to deal with. Alliance Master Yuan, just as the battle was about to begin, Feng Bujue shouted, You have to help my guests. I'll deal with the King of Hell. After that, Brother Ju ran away as fast as lightning. His actions were always so unexpected. Under such circumstances, he didn't flee into the vast space outside the villa. Instead, he ran into the interior of Heartbreak Villa. Feng Bujue ran away so decisively, so confidently. He didn't even look back. And Lin Yin really went after him. She was like a moth flying into a flame. Even though she knew that her opponent was luring her to chase after him, she didn't hesitate. Humph! I won't let you have your way. 2 seconds later, Su Huaishang was the first to react. She immediately turned around and ran after the 2 men. But at that moment, a figure flashed out like a bolt of lightning. A cold, almost tangible, murderous intent burst forth and blocked Su Huaishang's path. I'm sorry. Ruoyu's face was dark as she looked at Su Huaishang, who was a few meters away. I can't let you pass. Su Huaishang stopped in her tracks. In an instant, she knew the person in front of her wouldn't let her pass. This is between me and Feng Bujue. Su Huaishang looked at Ruoyu and said in a low voice, I'm standing between the 2 of you right now. Ruoyu's answer was rather subtle. He owes me a victory. Su Huaishang added. I know, Ruoyu said as she placed her hand on the hilt of her sword. So I'm here to pay him back. Their conversation was short and simple. In fact, it was confusing to the onlookers. However, the 2 of them seemed to have come to an agreement. A split second later, 2 earth-shattering auras burst forth and formed a stalemate. Sword intent. Cold, biting, heavy. Saber intent. Swift, sharp, fierce. By the time everyone came to their senses, a 10-meter radius around the 2 of them had already been enveloped by an aura that not even a fly or a fallen leaf would be able to enter. Screech. Moments later, a fallen leaf drifted into the sword and saber formation. The sound of the leaf being torn apart by the invisible aura also marked the beginning of the battle between sword and saber. Meanwhile, in the depths of Heartbreak Mountain Villa, Feng Bujue was a fast runner. Perhaps many people have already forgotten, I haven't, really, that one of the special effects of the Void Tread was the ability to double one's maximum running speed. Therefore, in less than 3 minutes, he had already covered a distance of several kilometers and arrived at the depths of Heartbreak Mountain Villa. Heartbreak Mountain Villa covered a large area. Excluding King Yinluo himself, Every single one of his maids had their own residence. There were also many other functional buildings and areas, such as a kitchen, a study room, an alchemy room, a weaving workshop, and even a hot spring. All of these were built within the boundaries of Heartbreak Mountain Villa. In addition, there were many courtyards and gardens with different sceneries in Heartbreak Mountain Villa. However, there were no farmlands or pastures. This was because the farming and animal husbandry work in Heartbreak Valley was done by the people living in the village. They would regularly send crops and fresh animal meat to Heartbreak Mountain Villa. Furthermore, the design of each courtyard could be said to be the work of a master. Right now, Fong Bujue was in a cherry blossom garden. I've run so far. It should be about time. Finally, Fong Bujue stopped running under the white cherry blossoms. Lin Yan also caught up to him in a matter of seconds. She leaped in front of her brother Ju and confronted him. What's wrong? What is the purpose of luring me here? Lin Yan had heard of Fong Bujue's cunning before, so she asked the question that came out of her mouth. Fong Bujue chuckled. Don't worry, I'm not plotting anything. The reason I lured you here is because, although your martial arts are high, you obviously don't know when to stop like Eunuch Chao. If I were to fight you directly there, it would inevitably affect the people around us. Master Fong, you've really put a lot of thought into this. Lin Yan's anger had subsided a lot. She sneered coldly. But don't you think it's a little too late for you to pretend to be a righteous person? There's only the two of us here. What's there to pretend for? Fong Bujue spread his hands. Pretend for you? What am I after? Maybe I'll spare your life because of your righteousness? Lin Yan continued. Do you believe that yourself? Fong Bujue asked with a smile. Lin Yan also laughed coldly. Okay, I don't believe it. Since I couldn't convince you with facts, it would be a joke to use righteousness to move you. Fong Bujue suddenly became serious and continued. I can imagine, after your father's death, your family will encounter a tragic change. I also know that despair and sadness will bring out the darkness in people's hearts. Ironically, the darkness that resides in one's heart can often make people stronger. When Brother Ju said this kind of half-truth, it was very infectious. He could even make those who did not fit the description say, I seem to be like that illusion. I don't know how you set killing Fong Bujue and avenging your father as your life goal. After pausing for 2 seconds, Fong Bujue continued, but I think once you set your mind on this, your life will be much easier. This idea will become a way for you to vent, the motivation to live, and the source of your strength. He looked at Lin Yan indifferently, and their eyes met. Today you are strong enough, and your mind is mature enough. Moreover, you possess peerless martial arts. You naturally have other aspirations. He raised his arm and made a please gesture. It's time to erase the word revenge from your heart. Kill me, and you can start the next stage of your life. At this point, Lin Yan's expression changed several times. After a moment of silence, she spoke again. If you said this to make me waver, you succeeded. Fong Bujue smiled, but didn't say anything. But, Lin Yan said, and her eyes sharpened. Even if you're right, I have no other choice. After saying this, she moved and broke through the sound barrier, directly attacking Fong Bujue. Lin Yan had received Chao Qin's teachings since she was young, and she had countless skills. Coupled with her talent, it was hard to come by in 100 years. Her martial art cultivation was so high that only Chao Qin could compete with her. This time, she used all her strength to attack, and in terms of speed, she was actually faster than Brother Ju. Chapter 1050. Fong Bujue's speed was amazing. In the whole of Thriller Paradise, there were probably less than 10 players who could match or even surpass him in terms of speed. But among the NPCs, there were quite a few who could achieve this kind of speed. Lin Yan was one of them. Hidden weapons and Qigong were martial arts that were very suitable for women to practice. Lin Yan's mastery of these two martial arts was not hard to imagine. Of course, she had abandoned hidden weapons for many years because she had no use for them. When she was 20 years old, she could throw things like grass, trees, sand, and stones with the power of hidden weapons. When she was 30 years old, She could take a person's life with just a flick of her finger. Furthermore, the external skills that she used were all top-tier martial arts. In this regard, she was worlds apart from Yuan Qi. Using Alliance Master Yuan's killing of Song Wuqi as an example, Yuan Qi's palm strike that broke the tree was actually a very normal palm strike. It was just that his internal energy was very powerful, so it had that kind of power. However, the skill that Lin Yin used to kill Bao Qi was extremely complicated. That light flick of her finger required so little internal energy that it was negligible. When she attacked, the power was like a gentle breeze. But in just a moment, that gentle breeze turned into a violent gust of wind. The damage it caused was even greater than Alliance Master Yuan's palm strike. This was the power of top-tier martial arts. Although Yuan Qi's Fated Star Mysterious Art was also a top-tier martial art, this was the only divine art he had learned. The rest of his martial arts, especially his external martial arts, were mostly random and unorthodox martial arts that could be found on the streets. Thankfully, Alliance Master Yuan had a lot of combat experience and was not stupid. Over the years, he had merged all these useless martial arts into his own fighting style. Its power was not bad, but Lin Yin was different. Since she was 6 years old, Chao Xian had personally taught her the theory of martial arts and various ultimate martial arts. Therefore, whether it was internal energy, external energy, mental cultivation, or martial arts, the first martial arts that Lin Yin learned were all the best and most perfect. For example, the Qin Gong she was using now, Xiao Yao Qi. When she used it, there was not the slightest trace, and it did not take much effort. Not only was it agile and fast, it could also create the illusion of appearing and disappearing to the opponent. Facing such an extremely fast ambush that came with the effect of blink, naturally, Feng Bujue was unable to evade it. Brother Zhu was also decisive. He immediately activated Immovable Mountain, which he had hidden in his coat pocket. He wanted to use the effect of the orb to block this attack. However, Lin Yin actually understood the rhythm of the orb. In that split second, Lin Yin flipped her wrist and flicked her jade-like finger, releasing a probing qi towards Feng Bujue. Half a second later, the force collided with the mountain-shaped defensive wall. Seeing this, Lin Yin snorted coldly. Her right leg immediately stopped moving forward, and she retreated a few feet. Therefore, the orb's effect of blocking all external attacks for 5 seconds was wasted just like that. That's amazing, Feng Bujue thought to himself, anticipating the enemy's attack, not showing any flaws. Then, what should I do after 5 seconds? This was indeed a very serious problem. In a one-on-one fight, the frenzy effect of Psycho Poker was useless. This effect could only be reflected when there were 2 or more attacks. Therefore, Immovable Mountain was Brother Zhu's only hard defense method. But now this skill had been exhausted. Next, if Feng Bujue was hit by an attack that he could not evade, he would have to rely on pure defensive power to withstand it. Given that Lin Yin's speed was faster than him, the situation of unable to dodge would probably occur frequently. And if he was continuously attacked by an NPC of this level, the consequences would be self-evident. Okay, looks like there is only one way. In less than 5 seconds, Feng Bujue came to a conclusion. Offense was the best defense. Feng Bujue didn't want to use Chuck Norris's razor before the final, but he didn't want to be killed here either. Therefore, before the force field of the orb of the mountain disappeared, Chun Gu made up his mind. He summoned Madman Poker and activated the skill that could only be used once in every scenario, Madman. The cooldown was 24 hours in free exploration mode. In an instant, the black poker cards surged out like a swarm of insects and rushed towards Lin Yin like a tide. Witchcraft. Unexpectedly, after seeing Brother Zhu's trump card, Lin Yin still didn't give up. Even if it's witchcraft, I'm not afraid. Then, she straightened her back and closed her eyes. She gathered qi from her dantian and pushed her palms to her sides. At that moment, the qi that Lin Yin released let out a cry, like a crane crying in the sky. In the span of a breath, 2 strange dark green lights swam out of his palms. They circled around his body and protected his body in a round and thick real chi shield. Chi 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 chi. The black psycho poker cards rushed toward Lin Yin like a storm, but they were all blocked by the chi shield and couldn't get close. Huh. Very good. Just as the attack and defense were in a stalemate, Chao Xian's voice came from outside the battlefield. Somehow, he had followed them to the commentators. No, to the spectator seat. This black tortoise force has 70% of my power. It's more than enough to defend against this spell. Chao Xian's comment made Lin Yin calm down. Eunuch Chao, Feng Bujue still had time to talk to him. The black tortoise force you mentioned is one of the 12 martial arts that can dominate the martial arts world, right? Not at all. Chao Xian replied. The black tortoise force is one of the 4 mantras of the divine art of 4 symbols. Strictly speaking, it's not a martial art, but a quarter of a martial art. TSK, you win. Feng Bujue snorted and then said, by the way, Eunuch Chao, why are you here? Do you want to lend Miss Lin a hand? No, I'm not helping anyone. Chao Xian replied calmly. I'm here because the battle over there is interesting, but I'm more interested in the battle between my disciple and you, Master Feng. Even if I kill your disciple, you're still going to stand by and do nothing? Feng Bujue's expression turned cold as he looked at Chao Xian. Oomph. Chao Xian snorted. If Lin Yin really dies here, it only means she's not that strong. This is a plan that you've been planning for decades. She's the martial arts world master who single-handedly raised you. Feng Bujue reminded him in a serious tone. Chao Xian shook his head and replied in a deep voice, Master Feng, what do you think the martial arts world master is? If you want to help someone one-on-one, then don't do anything. If you call a few hundred people like Yuan Shi to boost your morale, what's the difference between you and a hooligan? He paused for half a second and continued. Moreover, today's battle is Lin Yan's battle for revenge, and it's also her final test to become the martial arts world master. Even if I wanted to help, Lin Yan wouldn't agree. That's right. Lin Yan, who is surrounded by the black energy vortex, said, Feng Bujue, do you really think you can kill me? You don't seem to understand the situation. Feng Bujue shook his head 2 seconds later and said, Eunuch Chao, I've already said this much. Don't you understand? Chao Xian's expression changed when he heard this. He suddenly realized that Feng Bujue wasn't trying to test him. Instead, he was trying to say, I can already kill her. Are you really not going to do anything about it? No. But Chao Xian still didn't believe it. Lin Yin was trained by him. How could she be defeated so easily? That's impossible. You're bluffing. I thought about it again and again. As he spoke, Feng Bujue took Outbind from his inventory and placed Immovable Mountain, which had just entered cooldown, into the leather pocket of the slingshot. That's how I made up my mind. Slingshot? Chao Xian saw this and was suspicious. Although he didn't believe that Lin Yin could kill Lin Yin with such a thing, he still felt uneasy. Let me. Feng Bujue quickly aimed at the target. The psycho poker in his hand disappeared when he placed the slingshot. At that moment, the black energy disappeared, and Lin Yin was exposed in front of Baiyan's crosshairs. Let me send you on your last journey. Autumn. Waning autumn. 40 years ago, it was the same waning autumn. Night. Long night. 5 years after the sword duel in Changlin, it was a cold night. That night, the autumn wind was like scissors, and the clouds were thick. A group of people with swords and knives broke into a house in the middle of the night. It was a dilapidated house. There was only a woman and a 5-year-old girl inside. The woman was Lin Chang's wife. 5 years ago, she was chased out of the Yi family with this title. She didn't tell anyone that she was pregnant with Lin Chang's child. She was afraid that if she told others, it would bring more misfortune to the child. She was a poor person. Like Lin Chang, her parents died early. Other than her husband, she had no other family in this world. Lin Chang treated her well. Even after he was controlled by the demon, Lin Chang's attitude toward his wife was the same. Perhaps this ordinary woman was the last harbor in Lin Chang's heart. To her, her husband was her everything. She only lived for him and was willing to give up everything for him. But one day, Lin Chang left home and never returned. She waited in a daze, but what she got was the news of her husband's death and the hatred of the world. She wasn't from the martial world and had no family to return to. If not for the child in her womb, she would have followed her husband to the afterlife. But for the child, she decided to live. She had to live. When she was chased out of the Yi family, some of the servants pitied her and gave her some money. She wandered to a small town and changed her name. She used the money to settle down. She sewed and did laundry for others. She barely made ends meet. She raised a child without a father and was looked down on and despised by others. Year after year, but she endured it. Seeing Lin Yin grow up healthily, she felt that these hardships were nothing. Unfortunately, 5 years later, even those days came to an end. Finally, someone in the martial world heard news about Lin Chang's widow. In the name of revenge, they barged into the house at night to force the woman to hand over Lin Chang's ultimate martial art manual. But Lin Chang didn't leave behind any manual. The woman couldn't give them anything, but those people didn't believe her. They beat her and tortured her, but to no avail. This made them even more furious. So, they grabbed the crying child and put a steel knife on her tender neck. The woman begged them to let the child go. She, who was already covered in bruises, knelt on the ground and kowtowed desperately to beg. But she didn't arouse their pity at all. Finally, she kowtowed and fell into a pool of blood, no longer moving. Those people finally believed that there was no way to find any peerless martial arts manuals here. Just as they were about to exterminate the child, a figure flashed in. It only took a second to end the lives of these people. Under the cherry tree, blood stained the clothes of the beauty. Lin Yin laughed. When she looked down and saw the bloody hole in her chest, she revealed a sad but beautiful smile. The moment she fell, Feng Bujue went forward and held her. He knew that she still had something to say. "What kind of person is my father?" She looked at Feng Bujue and asked a strange question. "He is a hero, the king of the martial arts world," Feng Bujue answered. That's great." Lin Yan's lips were bleeding, but there was relief in her eyes. "Mother didn't lie to me." When she said that, Lin Yan's hair was turning white, and her youthful face was aging at a speed visible to the naked eye. "Feng Bujue." Her voice soon turned old. "Actually, I don't want to be the king of the martial arts world." She stuttered. "I just want to be with my father and mother." It was getting harder for her to speak, and some of the words were getting muffled. "When I was young, sometimes I would see my mother crying alone. I thought, if only my father was still here." She coughed out another mouthful of blood, and Feng Bujue could feel her body shaking. "I hate you," Lin Yin cried. Tears slid down her wrinkled cheeks. At this moment, she looked even older than her actual age. "I also hate that group of so-called martial arts world. You kill my parents. Woo-woo. But I can't take revenge." Feng Bujue looked at her and listened to her crying. He was speechless. In the end, he could only sigh helplessly. "You are tired. Go to sleep. When you wake up, you will be reunited with your family." Really? Lin Yin seemed to be losing her mind. When she heard that, a trace of anticipation appeared on her dying face. "Really, I promise," Feng Bujue replied. "Then that's wonderful." Before Lin Yin could finish the sentence, her eyes lost their focus. Feng Bujue was silent for a long time before he closed the eyes of the old woman in his embrace. He laid her body flat on the ground, allowing her to rest in this burial ground where cherry blossoms were falling. Chapter 10:51. "You seem to feel guilty," Chao Xian said calmly as he looked at Feng Bujue, who was slowly getting up. "No, I'm just feeling sorry for her." After Feng Bujue steadied himself, he turned to Chao Qin with a cold gaze. "As a chess piece, her life has been too heavy and sorrowful." "Chess piece, huh?" Chao Xian said slowly. Then he smiled and said, "Master Feng, it seems like there's nothing in this world that can escape your eyes. Now that Lin Yin is dead, you can tell me what happened, right?" Feng Bujue continued. "I can," Chao Xian said, "but is there really a need for that? Eunuch Chow, you have great foresight and great foresight. If you don't find someone who can understand you, and tell them. Feng Bujue replied, wouldn't it be like casting pearls before swine? All right. Chow Xin smiled. He paused for a few seconds to organize his thoughts, and continued. This has to start from the year of the Sword Conference in Chonglin. I'm all ears, Feng Bujue said. Chow Xin nodded and continued. That year, the Sword Conference changed the world. The news of Lin Chong colluding with the former commander of the Brocade Guards, Qian Ning, undoubtedly reached the ears of the late emperor. The late emperor thought that this matter should be taken as a warning and should not be taken lightly. If the forces of the martial world and some of the forces in the imperial court secretly formed an alliance, they would quickly become a force that no one could control, and they might even become a threat to the imperial power. He paused for half a second before continuing. So, not long after, a long and heavy mission fell on my shoulders. So that's how it is? Feng Bujue asked. It started then. Chow Xin did not respond to his words. Instead, he continued to narrate. In order to achieve this mission, I need 2 chess pieces. One is someone who is the best in the world in martial arts and who listens to my every word. The other is someone who has ambition, perseverance, and knows how to seize opportunities. It's Lin Yin and Yuan Shi, Feng Bujue answered. Chao Qin smiled but didn't answer. He continued to speak. Training the first person requires time. Fortunately, time is the one thing I don't lack. Since we don't lack time, the next thing is to confirm the candidate. He paused. Lin Yin is the perfect candidate. Is it easier to control a little girl like that? Feng Bujue said coldly. It's not as easy as you think, but I did succeed, Chow Xin replied proudly. Then, Eunuch Chow untied the wine jug hanging from his waist and took a sip before saying, after Lin Chang's death, his widow who was pregnant with his posthumous child was chased out of the Yi residence. I sent spies from the Eastern Faction Guards to spy on her in secret for several years to see if they could find out Lin Chang's secret martial arts manual from her. In the end, I didn't find a formless and void law, but my spies unexpectedly found out that Lin Chang's daughter was a peerless genius. Speaking of this, Chow Xin subconsciously glanced at Lin Yan's body. I waited for 5 years and felt that it was about time. So I sent someone to spread the news that Lin Chang's widow hid in a small town with the peerless secret book left by her husband. Sure enough, in less than half a month, some bandits were attracted by the smell of blood. That night, I hid in the dark and waited until they forced Lin Yan's mother to death. Then, I saved the girl. From then on, I became her adoptive father. Then you sold me out? Feng Bujue interrupted. Heh. Master Feng, you have to understand, Chao Qin said. People need motivation to grow. Her mother's death was a big blow to her, but I've already taken care of those murderers. It's not that I didn't think of deliberately letting a few of them go and let them become Lin Yan's future targets for revenge. But to be honest, those people weren't qualified at all. With Lin Yan's talent, she could have killed them all before she was 10 years old. So, as the enemy who killed her father, I became the best choice, Feng Bujue continued. You've seen her martial arts now. Chao Qin stretched out his hand and gestured at the corpse. Master Feng, you should feel honored. Without you, Lin Yan wouldn't be who she is today. You'd better continue talking about your mission. Feng Bujue didn't turn his head to look at Lin Yan. He only looked at Chao Qin and communicated with him in an unfriendly tone. In the 10 years after that, Lin Yan's martial arts improved by leaps and bounds. Her comprehension was extremely high. At the age of 6, she built her foundation with the Fated Star mysterious technique. She also learned many things from me. By the time she was 18, there weren't many people in the martial arts world who could stand shoulder to shoulder with her. Chao Qin continued. Most importantly, she is very obedient. Compared to her hatred, she is very grateful to me, her savior and teacher. As long as it was a mission I gave her, she would complete it without hesitation. If I'm not wrong, King of Hell was born at that time, right? Feng Bujue asked. Yes, Chao Qin replied. The existence of Heartgrave Valley and the legend of King Yinlua's immortality are all part of the plan. He took another sip of wine and looked at Brother Bujue with a strange expression. You should be able to understand that those techniques that allow one to stay young are no longer martial arts, but Tao. As for me, I only started cultivating when I was over 50 years old. Lin Yin can be said to have taken advantage of me. In order to keep her young and immortal appearance, I would pass on a portion of my profound Tao skills to her every year. I would also instruct her to meet with all the residents of Buried Heart Valley every month so that they could be witnesses. But doing this is different from living forever, right? Feng Bujue continued. Of course it's different, Chao Qin said. Chao Qin said, didn't you see it just now? Once her power dissipates, her body will age exponentially. To put it bluntly, you're overdrafting her lifespan in advance, Feng Bujue said. I can't do anything about it. After all, the Tao heart is different from martial arts. It's not something that can be easily cultivated at her age. Chao Qin waved his hand. In order to prevent her from aging, this is the only way. Then what happened after that? Feng Bujue didn't want to listen to this anymore and asked another question. Chao Qin continued calmly. 21 years ago, the situation in Buried Heart Valley had basically settled down. I felt that the time was right, so I began to look for a second chess piece. He looked up at the cherry tree beside him as if he was reminiscing about the past. That year was the first year of Shangping. After the previous emperor passed away, the crown prince, the current emperor, had just ascended to the throne. It was a time of murder. The imperial court was filled with bloodshed, and countless heads fell to the ground for 10 months of that year. I racked my brains trying to frame a group of people who stood on the wrong side and send their entire families to the execution ground. It wasn't until the 12th month that I had some free time. I disguised myself as a blind fortune teller and went to the pugilistic world. It was then that you chose Yuan Qi, Feng Bujue continued. Huh, Chao Qin said. You could say that Yuan Qi came to me on his own. He took another sip of wine and continued. It was a coincidence that I met him. Initially, I felt that he didn't fit my requirements because he was too mediocre and he wasn't young anymore. Later on, I realized that he was the best candidate. The more one recognizes his mediocrity, the more one appreciates the value of opportunity. Moreover, Yuan Qi had half of the life-star mysterious technique in his possession, which saved me a lot of trouble. I have to say, this was an opportunity. Now, both chess pieces have been buried, Feng Bujue said. That's right, Chao Qin said with a smile. What I need to do after that is to wait for the right time to come. And the emperor chose the right time for you, Feng Bujue continued. You seem to know something already, Chao Qin asked. I knew from the beginning that the emperor was behind this, Brother Bujue replied. I think he's not critically ill at all, right? Ha ha ha, Chao Qin laughed. Impressive. There's nothing impressive about it. It's just a simple deduction. Feng Bujue said, if the emperor really wanted to find the art of immortality, he could have just asked you, the director of the East Depot, who is getting younger with age. There's no need for him to look for the king of hell. He paused for a moment. Besides, after listening to your explanation, I can basically confirm that the current emperor knows about the king of hell and the mission that the late emperor gave you. Therefore, this so-called art of immortality mission actually has another purpose. It's so relaxing to chat with Master Feng. Chao Qi nodded. You're right. This trip is actually a cleansing mission. When he said this, his expression became slightly more serious. The current emperor is old. He only has one son, and he hasn't officially appointed a crown prince yet. As for Prince Jin, Zhu Zhixia, he's in the prime of his life, and he has a good reputation among the people. Although he doesn't have any intention of overstepping his authority, there are many people in the imperial court who want to push him and use him to rise to the throne. The civil officials are easy to deal with since I have 100 ways to kill them. However, the embroidered uniform guards, the Governor General's office, the Imperial Army, and even the people in my East Depot, they're not so easy to deal with. By now, these people should be dead, right? Feng Bujue had seen the corpses in the mountain villa, so he guessed a thing or two. Ha! Of course, Chao Qin said. During the trip to Buried Heart Valley, I gathered the few people who should be killed the most. It's very easy to get rid of them all in one go. Then, what about the mission that the late emperor gave you? Feng Buju asked again. Well, Chao Qin's expression changed slightly. I used the art of immortality as bait to lure Yuan Qi and many martial artists here. Originally, I wanted them to fight with the people in the valley trained by Lin Yin until both sides suffered great losses. Then, I could take the opportunity to wipe out all the first-class elites in the Central Plains in one go. He paused for 2 seconds before he continued. Then, I only needed to let Lin Yin establish a sect in the martial arts world. In 3 years at most, she would be able to unify the martial arts world. In that case, the martial arts world would be in your hands, Feng Buju added. No, it's in the emperor's hands, Chao Qin said. I'm just someone who does things. Whatever you say, Feng Buju said, but Lin Yin is dead now. Yes, she's dead, Chao Qin said. Then, who's going to be the Wulin master? Feng Buju asked. Anyone can do it, but you can't, Chao Qin said with a smile. Why? Feng Buju asked, even though he already knew the answer. Because you're someone who can't be controlled, Chao Qin said. Even I am afraid of people like you. So, Feng Buju gestured for Chao Qin to continue. So, Chao Qin drank the last mouthful of wine in the pot. It's best if you die here. I thought we were friends, Feng Buju said. We are indeed friends. If possible, I don't want to kill you, Chao Qin said. But for my dream, I must kill you. Dream? Feng Buju gave him a dead fish eye. You're a person who has entered the Tao, but you're still working hard for the imperial court. I won't complain about that. He laughed dryly. But you said you have a dream? Yes, of course. Chao Qin had a dream. As mentioned before, he was a person who transcended worldly affairs. Fame and fortune, glory, splendor, and wealth, they were no longer important to him. He already had the unparalleled martial arts in the world. Beautiful women. Let's not talk about this. In short, the things that most people in the secular world pursued were no longer pursuits for him. However, Chao Qin still had a dream. What he was considering was not so much a personal ideal as it was a concept. Confucians use literature to break the law, while chivalrous men use martial arts to break the law. Chao Qin's voice suddenly became high-pitched, and his eyes became very sharp. Only a single word can put an end to the conflict between factions. Only by unifying the Jianghu can there be no more Jianghu in the world. It's easy to kill people, but difficult to destroy the heart. Buried Heart Valley buries not only people, but also hearts. I said, I have plenty of time. Even if it takes another 50 or 100 years, I will complete all of this. The day I succeed, the great Ming dynasty will last for thousands of years, and the country will prosper, and the people will be at peace. Good, well said. Feng Buju put his hands in his pockets, tilted his head, and said, But when that time comes, won't you become a heretic that must be eliminated under this system? This, you don't have to worry about. Chao Qin said as he threw away the wine pot in his hand and released his inner qi. At that moment, the surrounding cherry blossoms fell like snow, and the light mist that filled the sky spun like a whirlpool. At this moment, the light of dawn scattered from the sky. For many years, this was the first time Chao Qin used his inner qi with a serious attitude, because he knew the opponent in front of him was worthy of him doing this. Master Feng, there's no need to be so polite. Amidst the falling petals, Chao Qin flipped his palm and raised it. In today's battle, life and death will be decided by the heavens. I have no regrets. Chapter 1052. Time went back a few minutes. Looking at the entrance of Heartbreak Mountain, at that time, the sky was still dark. The courtyard was filled with murderous intent. Under the dim light, two silhouettes stood facing each other, Ruoyu and Su Huaishang. This was the first time the two of them fought each other. Neither of them wanted to lose to the other. To be honest, I don't want to fight you. After a few seconds, Su Huaishang spoke first, because you are stronger than Feng Buju. This sentence was not a sign of weakness, nor was it misleading. It was Su Huaishang's opinion. Same to you. Ruo Yu's reply was short and calm. They both expressed their respect for each other, but they did not retract their murderous intent. Furthermore, both of their hands were pressed against their weapons from beginning to end. But since we have to fight, as Su Huaishang said this, the battle energy around her increased rapidly. Then I have to win. Understood, Ruo Yu replied. You plan to use that from the start? Hearing this, Su Huaishang was slightly surprised, but she quickly regained her composure. Yes, good, Ruo Yu said. Then, she raised her left hand and summoned her spiritual weapon, primordial water sword. Then let's enter that level of battle. What they said might not be understood by others, but it did not matter, because people would soon be able to see what they were going to do. There was another short period of silence. About 10 seconds later, suddenly, whoosh, there was an explosion of battle energy, announcing that a certain power within Su Huaishang's body had finally broken through the limit. This was her soul advent. During the S1 Battle of the Butterfly, Su Huaishang had used the special item, a tranquil cloud pill, to obtain this ability. But at that time, this was a power that she could not fully control. However, after that competition, her battle instincts had faintly remembered an inherited part of Soul Advent as Shadow. Finally, when she reached the maximum level, this ability was awakened as her soul. There were two effects of the soul version of Soul Advent. First, at the moment of activation, recover all life points, stamina points, and spiritual energy points. Secondly, in the next 5 minutes, he could freely use the moves of the sword masters from the other world. And when he used these moves, his stamina points would not be consumed. Compared to the item version, the Soul's Eye version got rid of the invincibility effect of when activated, the health, body, and soul are all positive and infinite. Instead, it got rid of the setting of when activated, the skill does not consume stamina. Correspondingly, it also got rid of the side effect of Soul Advent, which would cause the player's stats to drop to 1%. Of course, there was another change, and that was it could only be used once in each scenario. Normally, this kind of skill had a cooldown of 24 hours in free exploration mode, Soul Advent. As for the other aspects, there wasn't much to say. Su Huaishang had already demonstrated the power of this technique when she fought Brother Ju for the first time. Seeing this, some people might be wondering why Su Huaishang didn't wait until she had fought with Li Ruoyu for a while before activating it. Since this skill also had the heaven-defying effect of full recovery, why didn't Su Huaishang wait for a while before activating it? The answer was very simple. Her intuition told her that if she didn't enter this Soul Advent state at the beginning, she might not even have the chance to activate it before she lost. On the other hand, you had also activated the Soul's Eye maximum efficiency at the beginning of the battle. Furthermore, this was the first time she had used the martial arts that she had learned from Windmark in battle. Windmark, Magic Sword. 2 sword skills. One was calm and collected while the other was wild and crazy. Windmark himself could create a doppelganger to use these 2 sword techniques, but Li Ruoyu couldn't. However, Ruoyu had other methods. After receiving guidance from Windmark in the matchless martial competition, Ruoyu had integrated what she had learned. Combined with the special effect of the 7th level of the Bright Jade skill, she had undergone a lot of training. Finally, she had successfully mastered the skill of using both her left and right hands, 2 types of swords, and 2 types of swords at the same time. It was worth mentioning that Ruoyu's Bright Jade skill had reached the 8th tier, and the specific effect was as follows: name, Bright Jade skill, tier 8, skill card property, special skill, permanent, skill will improve with training type of skill. Effect 1, divine skill initial awakening, inner breath calming, stamina points consumption rate reduced, can move for a longer time without oxygen. Effect 2, chi flows away and changes one's body and bones. Basic physical skills increase slightly. Effect 3, heart as ice, unfazed by heaven collapsing, resistance to mental attribute negative effects increases. Effect 4, riding the wind and treading the waves, Shadow Step, active skill, allows player to perform a theoretical extreme dodging action. Effect 5. Using softness to conquer strength, lifting heavy as light, physical damage increased by 1. 5 times. Effect 6. Moving flowers and jade, invincible gods and ghosts. Active skill, reflects half of the attack power of an active skill back to the user, limited to players. Effect 7. Following one's heart, imperceptible realm, perfect control of oneself, allows one's body to make any subtle adjustments that are theoretically possible. Effect 8. Endless power, ice-like Xian energy, able to add ice attribute to any attack skill. Learning requirement, female player, level 35 or above, fighting. Mastery A, spiritual skill mastery unlocked. Remark, shifting flower palace's ultimate martial art, the ultimate heart sutra of the inner sect. Those who have mastered this divine art will have endless skill, mysterious force like ice, eternal youth, and invincible. The contents in the brackets were not the description of the skill itself, but what Ruo Yu had learned through repeated trial and error. Actually, Bright Jade skill, S description only had the front part. In this aspect, it was similar to Shao Tan's divine art of heaven and earth inversion. Just by looking at the description, one would not know what it did. Then, let's focus on the special effect of the 7th level of following one's heart, imperceptible realm. The so-called perfect control of one's body did not seem particularly difficult at first glance because the body was originally one's own, so it was natural to be able to control it. However, that was not the case. Indeed, each of us is the master of our own body, but the human body is not that easy to control. For example, alright, I know that many people will think of some perverted things after reading up to this point, so let me make it clear that I am a person with integrity and will not write such things. Then, let's continue. For example, a more classic example would be, one cannot open one's eyes the moment one sneezes. Another example would be, the right wrist and the right ankle turning clockwise and counterclockwise respectively, the tongue turning clockwise in the mouth while the head turning counterclockwise, the left hand drawing a circle while the right hand drawing a square. There were many similar examples. Some of the obstacles were due to the physiological limitations of the nervous system, and some were due to the difficulty of performing 2 tasks at the same time in the same area of the cerebral cortex. These were only problems that ordinary people could directly experience. In addition, there were also examples of body control that were beyond common sense, such as controlling the ears, controlling the hair, and even controlling the bones, controlling the organs, controlling the blood, and so on. After saying so much, there was only one meaning. It was actually very difficult to control one's own body. Then, if drawing a circle with the left hand and a square with the right hand was so difficult, then the difficulty of using one set of sword techniques with the left hand and another set of sword techniques with the right hand could be imagined. Even Ruo Yu, who had reached the 7th level of Bright Jade skill, took a long time to master the left and right in turf fighting skill. In summary, these two both had reached the pinnacle of martial arts. Moreover, they had already reached a consensus to abandon all probing and directly engage in a contest at the pinnacle. Dawn was approaching, and the light fog was getting thicker. Under the light, the fighting spirit was strong, and the dual swords were dual sabers. There were no more words. Everything had already been clarified in the confrontation of Do Qi. Before the 2 weapons clashed, the aura of the saber and the sword expanded again, almost enveloping an area with a radius of 50 meters. The surrounding players and NPCs could all feel this substantial power, and they were all forced to retreat more than 30 meters away from this austere environment. Finally, when the battle energy of both sides rose to a critical point, at the same moment the 2 of them moved. Fast, unbelievably fast, too fast for the eyes to take in. The moment the saber and the sword attacked, the 2 figures disappeared from everyone's sight almost at the same time. The 3 members of Red Cherry Blossom couldn't see their movements. Yuan Qi and the other Wuling heroes couldn't see their movements either. Hua Jin couldn't see their movements either. Of all the people present, Only Wang Tanji with eagle-eye vision activated, he could keep up with the rhythm of their battle. Hum, 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 hum. Amidst the blurry and chaotic flashes of the sabers and swords, there was only a dense and strange buzzing sound, but there was no sound of metal clashing. Only Xiao Tan knew that it was because the two weapons were too strong, so strong that the energy on the surface of the weapons was repelling each other, so they couldn't touch each other. Ruo Yu's Xianyuan sword was a sacred sword with form, and her primordial water divine sword was a strange sword without form. These two weapons didn't have any special effects or attributes that specifically targeted players, but their attack power was already overpowered enough. Even though the immature primordial water divine sword was weaker than the Xianyuan sword, in terms of strength, with its indestructible property, it was still no weaker than any other divine weapon. And Su Huaishang's dual sabers were also spiritual weapons, and they were fully matured spiritual weapons. Left blade. Name: Falling Flower item type. Spiritual weapon rarity. Legendary attack. Extreme. Attribute. None special effect 1. Blooming Flower. Deals 300% damage when hit. Special effect 2. Withering Flower. Reduces 60% damage when blocked. Special effect 3. Flying Flower. Ultimate skill. Can only be used when dual sabers are used. Cooldown of 4 hours. Remark: Far away from the world, far away. Right blade. Name: Flying Flower item type. Spiritual weapon rarity. Legendary attack. Extreme. Attribute. None special effect 1. Flying Wind. Increases attack speed by 100% after every hit. Lasts for 10 seconds and can be stacked up to 3 times. Special effect 2. Falling Flower. Increases movement speed by 50% after every successful block. Lasts for 6 seconds and can be stacked up to 4 times. Special effect 3. Flying Flower. Ultimate skill. Can only be used when dual sabers are used. Cooldown of 4 hours. Remark: A laugh at the sorrows of the human world. The special effects of these two weapons were quite shocking. Be it against players or monsters, as long as it was a melee battle, they would be able to unleash terrifying power. If Ruo Yu did not activate extreme efficiency, it would be hard for her to deal with this. However, Ruo Yu had extreme efficiency, and Su Huaishang had Soul's Descent. After a round of rapid attack and defense that lasted 30 seconds, the two of them realized that, so far, they were evenly matched in the battle. Perhaps in the first 10 seconds, Ruo Yu had the upper hand, but when the two effects of Flying Flower stacked up, Su Huaishang was able to turn the tables around. But, even so, it was still not enough to determine the winner. Ruo Yu knew about the existence of Soul's Descent, so when she saw Su Huaishang unleash her skill, she asked, "You plan to use that right from the start?" However, Su Huaishang did not know the specifics of extreme efficiency. After all, there was no one on her team who could see through the enemy's stats. So, she had no idea how long Ruo Yu could maintain this extreme state and what other changes would occur. Under these circumstances, Su Huaishang, who could only activate Soul's Eye for 5 minutes, would undoubtedly fight more aggressively. Therefore, when the battle reached the 31st second, Su Huaishang was the first to change her skill. Revolving Dance. Sky. Su Huaishang was actually someone who liked to announce the names of her skills. In fact, the gaming studio had a rule for them in this regard. Since this kind of behavior could increase the popularity of the game, the gaming studio encouraged the players to announce the names of their skills during battle. Of course, this was a matter of opinion. Some people would announce the names of their skills and appear arrogant, cool, and evil. But there were others who would announce the names of their skills and appear shameful or even obscene. As for the criteria, 70% depends on the face and 30% on the aura. In any case, since the normal exchange of skills did not work, Goddessu was the first to request for a change. Seeing this, Ruo Yu had no choice but to say something. Flowing Magic Sword. Ruo Yu used her actions to explain. "I know how to announce the names of my skills as well. Sword. Weeping Rain." Even when she was doing such a childish thing, she was still able to show off her cool demeanor. It was not easy. Mark of the Wind. Furthermore, she was using two different sword skills in her left and right hands. Mark of the Flowing Wind. When the two finished speaking, their skills intertwined with each other. In that second, the do-chi that collided actually emitted a crackling sound like that of lightning and thunder. The intertwining of their energy also emitted a beautiful light. After one breath, one could see the two figures intertwined and separated. At this point in the battle, the two figures stopped moving for the first time. Chapter 10:53. Blood dripped down with the wind. Ruoyu's wound was not deep. It was on her left hand. Su Huaishang's wound was not deep either. It was on her left rib. When the two weapons clashed, the former's two sword techniques unleashed two different sword auras. The latter, on the other hand, used two swords to unleash a long weapon, the revolving heaven slash. The former was able to unleash her attacks freely, while the latter was able to materialize her attacks. Both of them were extremely proficient in the use of weapons and their understanding of martial arts. However, the difference in their techniques and the shape of their weapons had a subtle effect on the outcome of this battle. There was no such thing as a flawless defense in this world. There was no such thing as an invincible attack. There was no such thing as two people who were on par with each other. There was no first place in literature and no second place in martial arts. As long as the two sides were human, they would be able to determine the winner through the details. If one had to point out who had the upper hand in that exchange, it would be Su Huaishang. Even though her torso was injured, the pain was nothing. The depth of the wound was not enough to affect the reflexes of her muscles. However, Ruoyu's wound was more troublesome. The pain from her left wrist would directly affect her ability to wield her weapon. Furthermore, the wound would open up as she continued to wield her sword at an extremely high speed. Looks like you have bad luck. After the exchange, Su Huaishang looked at Ruoyu's hand and said, "No, this is not a matter of luck." Ruoyu replied calmly, "It's just that my swordsmanship is not good enough. No matter what, I will not go easy on you because of this." Su Huaishang said, "I know," Ruoyu replied. "That would be for the best." Silence descended once again. The atmosphere between the two of them was like the calm before the storm. At the same time, outside of the sword and blade formation of the two heroines, everyone was paying close attention to the changes in the battle. They were ready to act at any time. Should we help? Tai Haitang's marksmanship mastery was not bad. She should be able to help at this moment. However, she still asked for Bloody Rose's opinion. "Are you confident that you can hit the target while they are fighting?" Blood Rose did not give a direct answer, but instead asked a question. Tai Haitang laughed bitterly. "How is that possible? I can't even see their afterimages when they attack so quickly." She signaled to Ruoyu with her eyes. "What I mean is like now, when they're in a standstill state, can we consider intervening? Actually, there's no difference." Bloody Rose continued in a deep voice, "If you don't believe me, you can try shooting her now." Her words sounded a little mystifying, but Tai Haitang was the type of person who acted faster than she thought, so she decided to give it a try. Bang! A gunshot rang out, and a rifle bullet suddenly shot out of the chamber, rushing towards Ruoyu, who was standing in the distance. In that second, Ruoyu's gaze was still fixed on Su Huaishang's body. Her body didn't move at all. However, the bullet did not hit her. Instead, it brushed past her. Seeing this, Tai Haitang was stunned. "I missed. That's impossible." That was indeed impossible. At this distance, there was no way she would miss a stationary target. "It's not that you missed, it's that she avoided it." Bloody Rose continued. "But, just as you said, she was so fast that we couldn't even see her afterimage. Therefore, visually, it gave us the illusion that she didn't move at all." "Hey, that's too much of an exaggeration." Tai Haitang replied in a skeptical tone. "Actually, that's normal." Bloody Rose replied. "The opponent's speed is obvious. The speed of the bullet is actually slower compared to the rhythm of their battle earlier. Unless you can accurately intervene in the process of their entanglement and ensure that you don't accidentally injure your own people. Otherwise, such shooting is all in vain." That might not be true. At this time, Feng Xinzi suddenly laughed drily and said, after that shot, when she said this, her eyes had already moved away from the battle and looked elsewhere. That Wang Tanji suddenly disappeared. What? Bloody Rose and Tai Haidang were shocked when they heard that. The two hurriedly turned to look and realized that of the two members from Underworld Frontline who were originally standing on the same side as Yuan Chi and the other NPCs, only Flowers in the Stone was left. When did he? Bloody Rose wanted to ask another question. I didn't see him. Feng Xinzi did not wait for her to finish. Before the gunshot, I looked at him, and he was still there. When the gunshot was fired, I also looked at Passing Rain like you guys did. After the gunshot, when I looked back, the kid had already disappeared. As the medic player in the team, Feng Xinzi always played the role of support and support. Therefore, she often paid attention to the blind spots that her teammates did not pay much attention to. And now, she had discovered something that might pose a huge threat. I was too careless, Tai Haidang said with dissatisfaction. I let the opponent's assassin disappear from my sight. At this point, we have to come up with a countermeasure, Bloody Rose said with a frown. Moments later, she spoke again. Since we are temporarily unable to provide effective support to the captain's battle, why don't we do something else? He paused for half a second before continuing. I have two ideas. 1. We should leave this place and chase after Feng Bujue. 2. We can make use of the fact that Wang Tanji has gone missing. We can make use of this opportunity to circle around the battlefield and try to kill Hua Jian before the group of NPCs can react. After a moment's hesitation, Feng Xinzi said, I think the second plan is better. The three of us would trigger a battle. Whether it succeeds or not, at least it will distract Passing Rain to a certain extent. Tai Haidang chuckled. How come I feel like, if the three of us chase after Feng Bujue, it will be easier to distract her. For a person of action like her, her instincts were surprisingly accurate. Actually, I also think chasing after them is better. Bloody Rose thought about it. Even if the NPCs are not that powerful, that leader Yuan is undeniably a boss. Furthermore, before Feng Bujue left, he specifically asked him to help. If we go after them now, it will create pressure for Passing Rain, and it will give us a chance to kill Flowers in the process, but we will have to pay a price. This way, our team leader will be distracted as well. Then, we will use the first plan. After hearing this analysis, Feng Xinzi did not have any objections. We should not waste time. The longer we stay here, the more disadvantageous it will be for us. Don't forget, the enemy still has Wang Tanji, whose whereabouts are unknown. After the discussion, the three turned around cautiously and hurried deeper into the villa. On the other hand, Hua Jian, who had witnessed this scene, smiled faintly and muttered to himself, I fell for it. Boom. After about 2 minutes of stalemate, a burst of energy once again attracted everyone's attention. They saw Ruo Yu and Su Huaishang, who were inside the sword and blade formation, had both increased their presence. At this point, the battle had entered a more suffocating phase, Hidden Moon. The moment the name of the skill was uttered, Su Huaishang's body glowed with a blue, icy glow. Her body dissolved into water and silently sank into the ground. Half a second later, a blue light rippled out from behind Ruo Yu, and it brought out Su Huaishang's body. Obviously, this Hidden Moon was an instantaneous movement technique. In the skills of the swordsman from another world, other than the skills that were triggered by cold weapons, there are also many other high-level skills, and this was one of them. In terms of skill effects, this skill was even better than 7 Kills Shadow Step. 7 Kill skill would appear behind the enemy after teleporting, but Hidden Moon, this distance could be adjusted according to the caster's will, appearing at any point around the enemy. In addition, Hidden Moon, its appearance had a wave-like blue light effect to obstruct the enemy's vision. Of course, the weakness of Hidden Moon was also very obvious. In terms of skill effect speed, Shadow Step was undoubtedly faster because the former's dissolving water and sinking ground effect took a bit of time. Plus, this special effect was very obvious. As long as the enemy saw it once, they would be prepared. The next time they saw the blue light, they would know what was going to happen. However, this kind of prediction didn't mean much in this battle. Regardless of whether she had seen this move or not, Ruo Yu was still able to react in time. Fei Dao Sect, Forbidden Hand, Rolling Rain Formation. Wind leaves traces, the killing intent and fighting skills of the two people who were so close to each other suddenly clashed. The sword light vibrated, as if it was a soul-stealing dance. The sword light rushed, as if it was a sad song. As the sword and blade clashed, the two people were still moving according to the situation, looking for a chance to change their skills and break through. Their movement techniques were agile and swift, and they were like celestial fairies that danced gracefully on the waves as they moved. However, their attacks were like the flames of a storm that shook the hearts of others. The group of Wulian heroes present had never seen such a duel before. They were all dumbfounded and exclaiming in amazement. Some people even felt that the martial arts that they had practiced for decades were a joke, and they even thought of quitting Junk Shadow Slit. It was too late to say, but in the blink of an eye, after another round of attacks, Su Huaishang threw up Falling Flower and used another strange skill. The fast sword flew into the air and suddenly entered a very small crack in space. Half a second later, the same crack appeared behind Ruo Yu, and Falling Flower flew over from that unavoidable angle. Sword magic style. Ruo Yu was as calm as before. She raised the water sword in her left hand and used the magic style to counter the fast sword. At the same time, her right hand moved again, howling wind. When these two skills met, Su Huaishang, who only had one sword in her hand, should have been forced back, but she didn't expect at this moment. Su Huaishang threw the sword in her right hand into the air as well, and waved her hands forward, fiery palm, miasma break. Ruo Yu didn't expect that Su Huaishang, who was used to using two swords, would abandon her swords and use her palms at this moment. Not only did she abandon her swords, but she also copied Ruo Yu and used her left hand and right hand to use two different skills. Good. In this extreme situation, Ruo Yu couldn't help but praise her. Under her cold exterior, a trace of fanatical, battle-hungry nature had been ignited. Qi Ying, after a strange sound, with the power of miasma break, Su Huaishang's soft and slender hand grabbed the Xian Yuan sword tightly. Her other hand slammed towards Ruo Yu's chest. At this moment, the wound on Ruo Yu's left hand finally opened up under the pressure, and the electric pain made it impossible for her to turn her sword around in time to defend herself. As a result, the power of the ferocious fist landed squarely on her chest. In a split second, Ruo Yu felt dizzy, and the blood in her chest froze. She couldn't gather her breath, so naturally, she couldn't use her strength. Su Huaishang's next attack was naturally connected. Emperor Run. Explosive killing array. Su Huaishang thought that this was her last attack. The spectators and those who were watching the live broadcast also thought that this was the final attack that would decide the outcome of the match. But Ruo Yu didn't think so. I wanted to save this for the final match. When Ruo Yu was lifted into the air by Su Huaishang, she took a deep breath and mumbled, "But it was worth it to use it on you." Su Huaishang didn't know what her opponent was going to use, but when she heard this, she felt a strong sense of unease. The duration of Soul Advent was limited, and there wasn't much time left. Su Huaishang kept changing her attack to prevent the battle from being dragged out to the next 5 minutes. But now that Ruo Yu said something like this, the situation was not looking good. Ruo Yu is not the type of person who liked to bluff like Feng Bujue. If she said something like this, then she must have a trump card that she hadn't used yet. However, even though she was worried, Su Huaishang was already halfway through her attack. In less than 2 seconds, Ruo Yu would be pressed to the ground and suffer the full damage of this attack. The Ring of Violence Palm earlier had already taken out more than half of Ruo Yu's life points. There was no way she could survive the damage of Emperor Ren's explosive killing array. No matter what, Su Huaishang had no reason to stop her attack. However, in those 2 seconds, gurgle, gurgle, a strange sound that sounded like bones rubbing against each other came from Ruo Yu's skull. At the same time, a white, plaster-like substance seeped out from Ruo Yu's skin and quickly covered half of her skull. It solidified into a mask with a vicious face and a wing-like pattern. Bang! Just as this happened, Su Huaishang's attack took effect. The golden shadow of Emperor Run appeared, and it blasted a giant crater into the ground with the rebounding force of the skill. Su Huaishang leaned back and somersaulted in the air, leaving the center of the explosion. Falling flour and flying catkins also flew back into her hands. It looked like she had one. However, her eyes were still staring at the dust that had yet to disperse with a burning gaze. Chapter 1054. The scene was silent and the atmosphere was oppressive. The dust settled. From the hole in the ground, a figure slowly stood up. In the hazy light, the figure appeared to have melted into the surroundings. She was quiet and cold. There was a bone-chilling coldness and apathy radiating from her, but at the same time, there was a murderous aura around her. At that moment, Ruo Yu's appearance had changed to a certain degree compared to before she landed. Other than the white bone mask on her face, there was a hole the size of a ping-pong ball on her neck. Other than that, her eyes had turned into black with white pupils, and her hair had grown to her waist. Item name: Broken Faces Cheek. Item type: Armor quality: Perfect defense points. Medium element. None special effect. Decrease the duration of negative control effect by 70%. Equipment requirement: Fighting Mastery A. Bound. Remark: The mask contains part of the power of the Hogyoku. After activation, it will allow the wearer to temporarily enter the state of incorporeal. However, this power can only be used once. After it is exhausted, the quality and effect of the mask will be permanently lowered. Ruo Yu had obtained this equipment a long time ago, but she had not used the equipment and costume in the scenario and had not used the power of incorporeal. Therefore, from appearance alone, one would not be able to tell that she was wearing this equipment. The reason why she hadn't used it before was obvious. After using it, the effect of the item would weaken. It was very likely that a perfect equipment would drop to a normal or even a broken grade. But, as Ruo Yu had said, if she used it here on Su Huaishang, then it would be worth it. It's almost time for Soul's Advent, isn't it? Under the mask, Rainey's voice became eerie and heavy, as if two people with one high and one low were harmonizing. Once she stood up, she turned to look at Su Huaishang and said that. Su Huaishang understood what her opponent was trying to say. If you still want to win, you'd better make your move before Soul's descent ends. Not only did she not die, the wounds on her body have all healed up. Su Huaishang observed Ruo Yu for a few seconds before muttering to herself, "TSK, she sure is hard to deal with." Before she even finished speaking, Su Huaishang unleashed another attack. Celestial Tyrant. God Seal Slash. After she shouted, Su Huaishang used only a split second to get close to Ruo Yu. Her movements were light and nimble. Her swift saber slashed out like a whirlpool. The saber chi that was released was like a chainsaw, tearing out arc-shaped slashes. Sword. Void Scar. Ruo Yu's body did not move as she faced the attack. She only raised her left hand and slashed out a fierce sword light with the Origin Water Deity sword. In the magic sword swordsmanship, the sword Void Scar did not actually exist. Ruo Yu had improvised this attack. Even though the details of the attack were not as precise as Windmark's swordsmanship, but the sword intent was similar to the wild nature of the magic sword. It complemented the latter very well. TSK, 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 TSK. Following a few strange sounds, the combat chi on the saber and the sword clashed in the air again. But this time, the balance of power had been broken. She actually blocked it. After the exchange of blows, Su Huaishang was shocked. Her opponent was only using one hand while her Celestial Tyrant's God Seal Slash was a technique that required the strength of both hands to activate. Under such circumstances, even if it was a draw, Su Huaishang was still at a disadvantage. "I'm sorry. I seem to have underestimated the power of Void Scar." At this moment, Ruo Yu casually added, "It looks like it doesn't matter if your soul is still here or not. It doesn't matter anymore." Hearing this, Su Huaishang did not respond. Instead, she used the secret sword, Moonlight Blade, again. She rushed forward and slashed at Ruoyu. Unexpectedly, bang, her saber landed on Ruoyu's ribs, but it did not create a wound. In this state, the surface of the skin will be as strong as steel, but the softness and tension of the skin will be the same as normal skin. Rainey did not even lower her head to look at her opponent's blade. Instead, she stared at Su Huaishang's face and said, "Initially, I thought that even with this level of defense, I would still be injured if I took a direct hit. But when I exchanged blows with you earlier, I realized that, due to the fact that turning into the void greatly increases one's basic physical skills, your strength and speed are no longer a threat to me. So I concluded that even if you hit me directly, it will be fine." "How dare you?" Su Huaishang started to panic. Because when Ruoyu was hit by the saber, the time limit of Soul's Advent was up. Cherry Blossom, Moonbreak. In the next second, she used the killer move that once cut Invincible Champion in half. This move was not given by Soul's Advent. It was Su Huaishang's own skill. Compared to using the skills of Soul's Advent, she was more familiar with using her own skills. Puff, Goo Goo. This slash was accompanied by the strange sound of bones being torn apart. The blade successfully tore through Ruoyu's steel skin and left a horizontal wound on her abdomen. But super regeneration is one of the basic abilities of Void Scar. When Ruoyu said this sentence casually, her wound was already healing at a speed visible to the naked eye. Other than that, I can now use my hands and even my mouth to cast Void Scar. I don't need any preparation time. After pausing for half a second, Ruoyu continued, It's a bit of a pity to end this duel with a single energy attack." Oof. At this time, Su Huaishang took a few steps back and showed a helpless and bitter smile. "My head and organs can't be regenerated, right?" "Yes, use a stronger attack than the previous one. Decapitate me and you'll win," Ruoyu replied. "So that's it?" Su Huaishang asked a question that sounded strange to the onlookers. However, Ruoyu understood. "Yes, that's it," she replied. After that, the two of them exchanged glances. Then, Su Huaishang took 2 deep breaths and spread her twin sabers on both sides of her body. She assumed the posture of a swallow spreading its wings. Ruoyu separated her twin swords and stood sideways. Then, she took half a step forward. Breathing was like an invisible signal. Once, twice. On the third exhale, they both moved. Twin sabers turned into falling petals. Twin swords used Remnant Wind Sword Shadow. Ding! Since the start of this battle, this was the first time that sabers and swords made such a clear and crisp sound. 2 seconds later, the two figures crossed each other and landed on the ground. They stood with their backs to each other. At this moment, all the light disappeared, all the sound was silenced, and all the movement stopped. The killing array of sabers and swords no longer existed. The murderous aura no longer existed. One breath later, one of them fell. At the same time, the dawn sun parted the fog in the sky and shone on the victor's shoulder. Chapter 1055. Time returned to the present. In the cherry blossom garden, the sky was filled with flying flowers. Chao Xin used his vast true energy to kill a strong enemy. In Unichao's mind, this strong enemy was undoubtedly Feng Bujue. Although Chao Xin was almost invincible in this martial arts world, or rather on this planet, he had always been wary of one person. That person was the Master Feng of the Broken Sword Shihitsu. This person, as well as the sect behind him, contained too many mysteries. For normal people, ignorance often meant fearlessness. But for people like Chao Xin, the unknown was the absolute terror. He could accept that there were people stronger than him in this world, as long as he knew how strong that person was. But he couldn't accept a man of unknown origin, unknown martial arts, and even more unknown thoughts wandering around the world. All right, you seem to be very interested in my 12 godly techniques. Before Chao Xin made his move, he suddenly opened his mouth and said, "I might as well tell you about it while I'm killing you." Oh! When it came to talking, Feng Bujue had the upper hand. If you want to tell me why I'm killing you, sure, he used a very natural tone to change the meaning of Chao Xian's words, and mocked him back. Ha ha. Eunuch Chao chuckled and continued. First, the Lifestar mysterious technique and the breathless technique. I think I've already explained the principles of these two techniques to you. After he finished speaking, he pushed out the ball of inner energy between his palms that had already been kneaded into a ball of water. It looked like this move was just a gentle push with one hand, but the ball of inner energy flew faster than a cannonball. With a whoosh, it flew in front of Brother Jew. Luckily, Feng Bujua's reaction and movement speed were enough to deal with this long-range attack. He activated the body enhancement spell, modified, in time, and dodged it. However, the ball of inner energy didn't disappear just like that. After it flew for more than 100 meters, it finally hit a cherry blossom tree. Chao Xian's invisible inner force had actually turned a 7 to 8 meter tall tree into powder, turning it into ashes. Holy *T. Spirit Pill, one of the moves in the Wandering White Book. This is... Feng Bujua didn't say anything, but he couldn't help but curse in his heart. I've been practicing the Faded Star mysterious technique for more than 50 years, and I've already reached the 9th level of the breathless technique. In terms of inner strength, Chao Qin shrugged slightly. It's already in a realm where it's inexhaustible. So what if I can't use it all up? I still have to circulate my energy when I attack. Feng Bujue clearly did not know martial arts, but he still sharply pointed out the opponent's weakness. An attack like that just now, wouldn't you need to prepare for a while before you can release it? You're right. Chao Xian laughed again. Possessing a peerless internal energy but without exquisite external energy to control it, that would be a waste. The moment he said that, a true power gathered on Chao Qin's finger. His orchid fingers flipped, turned, and flicked. Instantly, a wave of inner strength was released. When the energy left his hand, it was like a gentle breeze, light and soothing. But in an instant, it accelerated violently and turned into a thunderous force. Holy *T. This time, Feng Bujue couldn't dodge. Although he used a very twisted and extreme movement to react, a large piece of flesh was still cut off on the outer side of his left arm. This martial art is called Woman's Heart. Chao Qin's feminine voice sounded. I don't know who created this martial art, and I don't know if the person who created it gave it this name. But after practicing it, I feel that this name is appropriate. As he spoke, he moved both of his hands, 2 of his fingers extended, and consecutively pointed at Brother Bujua several times. The method of Woman's Heart is extremely complicated. Before the true energy is released, it has already undergone several changes in the meridians. Chao Qin's hands didn't stop moving, nor did his mouth. After the attack, it is invisible and formless, changing 3 times in an instant. It is hard to predict. The interval between the attacks is still okay, but the speed is a little fast. On the other side, Feng Bujue was also listening to Chao Qin's narration, dodging and thinking of countermeasure. With the speed of the first attack as a reference, the error of the 0-time calculation was reduced, so Feng Bujue was able to dodge all of Chao Qin's subsequent attacks. But it was still very difficult to dodge. Oh, you caught up so quickly. After Chao Qin had struck out more than 20 times, he continued, it's not impossible to tire you to death like this. But this method is a little boring. After all, I still have 9 types of martial arts that I haven't used yet. After saying this, Chao Qin stopped. After pausing for 2 seconds, he continued, the power of Woman's Heart is amazing, and it requires very little inner energy to use it. Even if you're a new talent in Jianghu, as long as you master this set of martial arts, you will have a chance to win against someone who is much stronger than you. Speaking up to this point, he changed the topic. Unfortunately, as I said, this martial art is too complicated and the requirement for talent are too high. Other than me, only Lin Yin, this kind of peerless genius, can practice it. When he said that, Feng Bujue took out a bandage from his inventory. Due to the recent loss of a few items, Brother Ju had more space in his inventory, so he went to the store to buy some items that could remove negative status effects. He quickly applied the bandage to his arm. But the next set of martial arts is the exact opposite. Chao Qin continued, "Even if you are very stupid, you can learn it easily." As he said this, his body suddenly shot out like an arrow, and in a flash he appeared beside Feng Bujue. Horizontal vertical fist. Chao Qin said the name of the fourth set of martial arts and punched towards Feng Bujue's torso. He didn't hit the head because he thought that if he hit the head, the opponent would most likely dodge. If he hit the torso, it would be difficult to dodge. But Feng Bujue still dodged. It was as if he was already prepared to dodge this attack, and his dodging was almost perfect. However, he saw his back facing the sky as he dashed backward, sweeping across the sky, lightly flying several feet away. Only then did he manage to land with a backflip. Hey, horizontal vertical fist is fine, Feng Bujue said after he steadied himself. Your Qin Gong can't be part of the set of martial arts, right? Ha! Good eyesight. Chao Qin laughed. The technique I used just now is the vermilion bird swim of the divine exercise of four symbols. Oh, that? Feng Bujue asked tentatively. Is it the same martial arts as the Black Tortoise Force? Yes, Chao Qin replied. The divine exercise of four symbols consists of Azure Dragon Roar, White Tiger Swim, Vermilion Bird Swim, and Black Tortoise Force. It can be said that it has four types of martial arts: attack, rotation, movement, and defense. He paused. Because I have the Sky Extinction Step, which is known as the Vermilion Bird Swim, I can achieve twice the result with half the effort. Feng Bujue didn't mind collecting more information through words. Hearing this, he said, "Okay, let's talk about the horizontal vertical fist again." Chapter 1056. Sure, Chao Xin said as he strode forward. But before that, why don't you take a few punches first? Feng Bujue heard this and stopped dodging. Instead, he used the Southern Dipper Flying Dragon Fist. At that moment, the two of them shouted in unison and punched at the same time. Their fighting auras burst out. This round of attack was the first time Feng Bujue and Chao Xin fought in close combat. Their fists collided and shadows of their fists filled the sky. Their four hands exploded in the air like machine guns colliding with each other. This was clearly not the fighting speed that humans should have. Actually, it's not bad. Isn't it similar to the Southern Dipper Flying Dragon Fist? Feng Bujue had already assessed the power of his opponent's fist. Yes, in the first few seconds, the situation was indeed like this. However, after a few breaths, Feng Bujue's power was exhausted, but Chao Xion's fist was still powerful. At this moment, Brother Ju realized where the secret skill was. Good. You win. This was the second time Brother Ju used this word to comment on eunuch Chao. It was enough to show that this old eunuch's cultivation was indeed admirable. As soon as he finished speaking, he moved. Seeing the fist coming at him heavily, Feng Bujue leaped into the air before the Southern Dipper Flying Dragon Fist finished its momentum. With a stomp of his feet, he moved several feet away. This horizontal, vertical fist. Chao Xin saw that eunuch Chao retreated, but he did not intend to chase after him. Instead, he began to explain in his usual indifferent tone. It's the foundation of the Zen sect in the Western region. The first set of martial arts that their disciples learn after they enter the sect is this fist technique. Wow! Feng Bujue raised his eyebrows. Then their sect is quite strong. There must be a lot of experts in their sect, right? Even though Chao Xin had a strong temperament, he could not help but say, it should be a lot of experts. Are there more clouds in the sky than shit on the ground? Feng Bujue retorted almost without thinking. Chao Xion's expression froze, and his lips twitched a few times. Then, he fell silent for 2 seconds and decided not to continue discussing this matter with Master Feng. In any case, horizontal vertical fist is a very easy martial art to learn, but that doesn't mean that everyone can rely on it to stand alone in the martial arts world. I know, Feng Bujue had actually understood the other party's intentions from the very beginning. He was just mocking him on purpose. Presumably, this kind of martial arts is easy to learn but hard to master. The further one goes, the harder it gets to practice. So much so that most people would have died long before they could reach your level. Heh, Master Feng is indeed quick-witted. Chao Qin smiled and said, "That's right. The horizontal vertical fist's mental cultivation method is very shallow. Even a person with low aptitude and no martial arts foundation can still learn it. However, there are no shortcuts to practicing this martial art. Regardless of the cultivator's aptitude, if they want to improve, they can only rely on hard work. However, the improvement of this martial art is very slow, and it's not like other peerless martial arts that are separated by levels. Horizontal vertical fist only has one level from beginning to end. The longer you practice it, the faster and fiercer your fist will be. There's no end to it. However, a person's life is limited, and people are fickle." Feng Bujue continued. "Compared to a peerless martial art that requires 30 to 40 years of hard work to unleash its full potential, people are more willing to spend their time on a martial art that can make them a second-rate expert in 5 to 10 years. He shrugged and smiled. "Heh, no wonder this is a Zen martial art, Sai." Chao Xian sighed and said, "Master Feng is right. Even in the Zen sects, not many people have the patience to practice this." He shook his head. "Many good martial arts have declined and been lost like this." Then, Chao Xian tapped his feet lightly and disappeared. "He can actually disappear from my sight?" Feng Bujue asked curiously. "What's the trick?" Before he could make up his mind, the wind from the palm arrived. Feng Bujue felt the movement of the air and turned around quickly. He saw Chao Xian's palm approaching. "Trying to trick me?" Brother Bujue glared at Chao Xian and asked in a rhetorical tone. His expression seemed to be saying, "I've always been the one to trick others, but no one has ever tried to trick me." Screech. Facing the enemy who was charging at him, Feng Bujue took out his kitchen knife at even faster speed and swung it to meet the attack. Ping! In the next second, there was a metallic sound between the two of them. After the two of them passed each other, a black object flew into the sky and fell in a parabola in the distance. "You must think that I can't beat your weapon with my bare hands." Chao Xian, who had rushed behind Brother Bujue, had his back to Feng Bujue. He closed his eyes and said confidently, "But my moving mountain iron hands is a technique that can break all the weapons in the world with my bare hands. Those who have mastered the iron hands technique can make their hands as hard as iron and as heavy as Mount Tai, let alone a kitchen knife. Even if you were holding a 100-pound hammer, it would still be knocked out of your hands." Huh. On the other side, Feng Bujue was also facing away from his opponent. He chuckled darkly. "You said..." He slowly raised the cleaver that he had tossed into his right hand. "This cleaver? What?" Chao Xian was shocked. It was the first time he was shocked. After being stunned for 2 seconds, he looked down, only to find that his right hand was gone. At this moment, he realized that the black object that flew out was not his opponent's weapon, but his own hand. How is this possible? Chao Xian quickly used his left hand to seal 2 acupoints on his right shoulder to stop the bleeding. He turned around and said in shock. This unexpected result undoubtedly made his action of confidently closing his eyes seem very shameful. "Grandpa, you didn't think that Feng Bujue was using an ordinary kitchen knife, right?" Feng Bujue waved the blade of absolute defense breaking and said with a smile, "Ha, I might as well tell you. The harder something is, the more fragile it is in front of this knife of mine." Chao Xian's body trembled slightly. Then, he regained his composure. I was careless." As he spoke, he secretly activated his true origin and used another secret technique. "But this is also a good opportunity." Chao Xian raised his bloody right wrist. "I can show you a special technique called replenishment of incomplete life." Halfway through his sentence, many granules that looked like living creatures grew out of his wrist. These granules kept secreting a red, gelatinous substance. This substance grew in extremely fast speed and evolved into bone marrow, blood vessels, muscles, and finally skin. Not long after, Chow Xian's hand had grown back. The new right hand skin was as white as a baby's. It was obviously different from the rest of his wrist. Grandpa, seeing this, Feng Bujue's first reaction was not to ask what the name of this technique was. Instead, he asked, "Since you have shown such a technique, then I have to ask, are you really a grandpa?" Hearing this, Chow Xian smiled. Master Feng's focus is really quite unique. His expression changed slightly. "But there's no harm in telling you." He paused. "As for me, I have been purified since I was young. As for the Rama mantra, it was after the age of 60 that I mastered it. Replenishment of incomplete life has a time limit. After so many years, the body has already adapted to the changes. Even a divine technique can't do anything about it." "All right, my condolences, Grandpa." Feng Bujue looked at him sympathetically. "There's nothing to be sad about. This is fate." Chow Xian replied indifferently. "If I really had the heart, I would just find a vegetable husband. Over the years, there have been many women who have taken the initiative to find me. But in my opinion, the relationship between men and women is too shallow." Chow Xian replied indifferently. "If I really had the heart, I would just find myself a vegetable husband. Not to mention the kinship between flesh and blood. Even the friendship between gold and orchids is longer and stronger than that." Gay love. So that's your type." Feng Bujue looked at Chow Xian from the corner of his eyes. "All right, we've digressed." Chow Xian didn't understand what his brother Ju was talking about. He just continued, "Let's talk about martial arts." As soon as he finished speaking, he moved again. Using the sky extinction step, his figure disappeared and reappeared. His lightness skill was extremely fast and exquisite. In the blink of an eye, Chow Xian was once again at Brother Ju's side. The moving mountain iron hands just now was created by a tomb raider from the previous dynasty. This person had 3 unique skills in his life, namely the moving mountain iron hands, the shrinking bone skill, and the tortoise breathing skill. With these 3 skills, he could enter tombs and steal treasures as easily as taking something out of his pocket. As Chow Xian said this, he had already activated his inner yuan. Suddenly, 7 to 8 purple light balls appeared around his body and revolved around him. As for the Heart Sutra of Rama, it is said that Rama created it after crossing the river and meditating on the wall for 19 years on Mount Jiwa. The person who succeeds in this skill has an exquisite inner breath and can regenerate good fortune. Although eunuch Chow was attacking and speaking, his attacks were thunderous and merciless. However, his tone of speaking was steady and at ease. On the other hand, Feng Bujue seemed to be in a difficult situation. He could only dodge and parry. However, he remembered everything that eunuch Chow said word for word. Moreover, he was still thinking and analyzing on the spot. As for the purple, brilliant divine skill that I'm using now, it was created by me 15 years ago. Chow Xian controlled the light balls and combined them with his fist technique to form a dense encirclement attack. During the attack, he constantly compressed Feng Bujue's space of movement and gradually forced him into a desperate situation. As you can see, the purple, brilliant divine skill that I'm currently practicing can make my vital energy materialize and condense it in midair. It can help me attack or defend as I wish. When Feng Bujue heard this, he quickly took out a water gun from his bag. It was the stellar cooling cannon. Then, he shot at eunuch Chow, who was close by. After seeing this slingshot and kitchen knife, Chow Xian did not dare to be careless with the strange toy that Feng Bujue took out. As soon as the toy water gun appeared, eunuch Chow hurriedly controlled the purple light ball to increase its suppression. He waved his sleeves and activated the black tortoise force. Chao Qin could use this move while moving, but it would affect his speed, just in case. BIU, BIU, BIU. In the end, the gun only shot out water. This made Chow Xian feel quite confused. What's wrong? He waved his sleeves and asked as he pursued. Master Feng, are you going to use poison or something like that? So what if I am? Feng Bujue did not answer his question. Instead, he used a question to answer a question to get more information. If that's really the case, then I don't need to block anymore. After Chao Xian said that, he stopped defending. Many years ago, I was rewarded with a 1,000-year-old snow toad by the late emperor. I used it to practice the strongest martial art in the Poison Codex, the poisonous cocoon body. Now, not only am I immune to poison, I can also absorb poison and recover my vital energy. If the weapon in your hand is really poisonous, then you can use it on me. I see. Feng Bujue pretended to recite. Phew. Fortunately, I'm not using poison. Oh, Chao Xian was puzzled. Then what is it? It's something that can make you slower, Feng Bujue replied. Chao Xian muttered to himself. At this moment, he already felt that he had slowed down. Heh, Master Feng, your skills really open my eyes every time. You flatter me. Brother Ju used the effect of the item to create some distance between him and his opponent. Once again, he avoided the danger of losing. Compared to Eunuch Chao's ability, what are my skills? He used his left hand to attack with the water gun, while the kitchen knife in his right hand was used to defend against the purple light balls. Speaking of which, if I'm not wrong, Eunuch Chao has already shown me the Destiny Mysterious Technique, Breathless Technique, Woman's Heart, Horizontal and Vertical Fist, Divine Skill of 4 Symbols, Ultimate Heavenly Steps, Mountain Moving Iron Hands, Sutra of Rama, Brilliant Purple Divine Skill, and Poisonous Cocoon Body, right? You have a good memory, Chao Xian replied affirmatively. Then the other 2 are... Feng Bujue continued. The remaining 2... Chao Xian's expression changed slightly. There are skills that cannot be taught to others. Oh, Feng Bujue asked with interest. Then bang, a gunshot cut off Brother Ju's words. Feng Bujue, who was focused on the battle and thought, did not notice that 3 enemies had arrived behind him. Therefore, he was shot. It was a bullet from a sniper rifle, and it was a special type of bullet. Even though Feng Bujue's defense was very high, and he had the special effect of 1320 mean armor, this bullet dealt him a lot of damage. Thankfully, Tai Haitan's marksmanship mastery was not maxed out yet, so the bullet did not hit his head. If it had been a headshot, then there would have been nothing left to say, and he would have died. Of course, death was acceptable because not long after the scenario started, before they entered Buried Heart Valley, Hua Jian had already used the special effect of the staff of Asclepius on Feng Bujue. In other words, Brother Ju still had another life. Shot in the back, lung damaged, corrosive bullet, bullet left the body, internal bleeding, organ damage, injury worsening, life points 15%, 13%, 10%. In that half a second, information flashed through Feng Bujue's mind. Unable to breathe, excessive blood loss, death in 4 seconds, life points recovery potion, consumed in 2 seconds, continuing blood loss, unable to heal wounds, unable to determine Chao Xian's location, gunner's follow-up attack, phenomenon, deduction, conclusion, strategy. The amount of information that Feng Bujue's brain processed in a short amount of time had surpassed the Anomalies Tactical Analysis program. Option 1. Give up the struggle and use the surprise of the enemy team members and Chao Xian after they revive to gain the upper hand. Soon, he came up with 2 options. Option 2. Rewrite. Chapter 1057. 10 seconds before the gunshot was fired, the members of Red Cherry Blossom received the news that their captain, Su Huaishang, had died. Even though their hearts were shaken, it did not affect their performance. On the contrary, it made them even more determined to kill Feng Bujue and use this opportunity to get back at him. After the gunshot, or rather, the moment the bullet hit Feng Bujue, the 3 members of Red Cherry Blossom immediately made their next move. What Tai Haitang needed to do was simple: reload and continue firing. Against an opponent like Brother Ju, even whipping his corpse would not be an exaggeration. After all, he was Feng Bujue. Before he turned into white light and disappeared, anything could happen. What Hyacinth needed to do was simple as well: stay beside Tai Haitang and act as an observer. considering the complicated terrain of Cherry Blossom Garden and the fact that there was an assassin in the enemy team who had gone missing. It was only logical for them to assign a bodyguard to the gunner. As for Blood Rose's quest, it was slightly more dangerous. In order to ensure that nothing went wrong, she decided to personally deal the finishing blow to Fong Bujue. Since the giant eagle and fossilized winged dragon were still on cooldown, Blood Rose summoned another creature that was more suitable for the terrain, the saber-toothed tiger. She rode on the tiger's back and sped away. There was no doubt that their ambush and pursuit were highly efficient and did not leave any leeway for Chenrue. No matter how one looked at it, Fong Bujue was already in a perilous situation. However, victory and defeat would often be reversed at the edge of such a situation. Thud, thud, thud. Suddenly, the sound of light footsteps came from the side of Tai Haidang and Hyacinth. Hearing that, Tai Haidang could not help but freeze for a moment. However, she did not turn around to look. Instead, she continued reloading and aiming. Since she trusted her teammates, she was certain that if anything happened, Hyacinth would deal with it on her own or give her instructions. As for Hyacinth, naturally, she turned to look. She turned her head and saw a Doberman sprinting towards her. At the same time, an ominous and strange feeling suddenly sprouted in his heart. This dog is Wang Tanji's summon, isn't it? As a professional player, he would not neglect the preparation of information before the match. Hyacinth soon realized the origin of the dog, but a skill like Draw Cross to curse you would not be noticed by Red Sakura's analysis team. Therefore, regarding the strange feeling in his heart, Hyacinth attributed it to his own intuition. What is he trying to do? Hyacinth's mind raced. Wang Tanji's summoning skill should only be able to summon some normal canines to act as cannon fodder. They will not pose any real threat. She took out a submachine gun and aimed at the Doberman that was running quickly. But why do I feel uneasy? Could it be? With that in mind, Hyacinth pulled the trigger and normal bullets shot out from the barrel, knocking the dog to the ground. The next second, Hyacinth turned around abruptly and activated a detection skill, Owl's Gaze. He used a unique vision wave to scan his surroundings in all 360 degrees. Tai Haidang was still kneeling on one knee while aiming, so he would not block his teammate's vision. However, she didn't find anything. Is it hiding behind a tree? Or, just as Hyacinth raised her head to look at the sky, something unexpected happened. Bang! Even though the summoned creature that was killed by the submachine gun 2 seconds ago dissolved into white light, the spot where it fell echoed with a loud explosion. Then, a thick cloud of white smoke exploded, and it followed the wind and headed toward Red Sakura and Hyacinth. This is bad. Hyacinth's reaction was not slow, and she soon understood the enemy's trick. He had the dog bite on a smoke grenade and run over from the wind. Once the summoned creature dies, the string in the dog's mouth will move, and the smoke grenade will explode. Bang! But before the smoke could reach them, Tai Haidang fired her second shot. They were about 50 meters away from Fong Bujue. Any further, and they would not be able to find a gap in the trees. Any closer, and they would be discovered by the enemy. Compared to the first shot, the second shot should be more effective because Fong Bujue was in an Or's state after being shot. Logically speaking, for someone who was shot in the torso by a special corrosive bullet, it was already a miracle that he did not die on the spot. It was impossible for him to dodge the second shot in such a state, but Fong Bujue managed to do it. He used the action of sea lion holding a ball and flopped on the spot. This small flop caused the second bullet to brush past his stomach, and it missed its mark. At the same time, inside the disciplinary team's meeting room, hey, how is that even possible? Lying Drunk looked at the screen and complained. The time between the two shots was less than 6 seconds. How did he manage to do that? Understanding Death was also confused. Even for me, with the help of Celestial Listener, the chance of successfully dodging the bullet at this distance is less than 60%, and Fong Bujue was shot earlier, Sashimi said with a straight face. Meng Jingchan's attitude was different from the rest. He took a drag from his cigarette and sipped from his beer. He looked at the other end of the table with a smile. Why don't you ask Phantom Dawn about this? At that moment, Phantom Dawn had also changed from his usual arrogant attitude and was looking at the screen seriously. After hearing what Brother Zen said, Phantom Dawn thought about it and said there are three main reasons why he was able to dodge that shot. He extended 3 fingers and continued. First, after Tai Haitang heard the footsteps of his summoned creature, his action hesitated for 0.8 seconds. Even though that was not long from the actual situation, it did affect the result of the shot. He put down 1 finger and continued. Second, after Feng Bujua was shot, he was already at the brink of death, but in the 1/4 6 seconds after he was shot, he used some kind of method to make his injury disappear. It was as if his body had rewound to the state it was several seconds ago. At this point, there was a subtle change in the expressions of the 4, but they did not interrupt Phantom Dawn. Instead, they waited for him to continue. Third, Phantom Dawn put down another finger and raised the last one. After he was shot, Feng Bujua must have known the angle, speed, power of the bullet, the type of bullet, the shooter's gun, location, distance, and so on. With these data as the basis for the 0-time difference calculation and the fact that his body had recovered, it was not that hard to pull off that kind of evasive maneuver. After hearing that, Phantom Dawn's 3 teammates had serious expressions on their faces. Only Meng Jingchan maintained his usual expression and sighed. Sigh, certain things are better left unexplored. Back to the match. That was close. After Feng Bujua was done with his struggle, he turned around and leaped up. He had dodged the bullet, but that did not mean that he was out of danger. In reality, the danger was far from over because Bloody Rose, who was riding on the saber-toothed tiger, had reached Brother Ju's side. She wanted to kill him before he could regain his footing. Roar! At that moment, there was a tiger's roar. The saber-toothed tiger opened its bloody maw and exhaled a yellow blast of air. This AoE attack came fast, wide, and powerful. Feng Bujua was in the air, so he could not evade it. He could only curl his body and take it head-on. As a result, his life points that had just been rewritten by rewrite were reduced by a few more points. Furthermore, Feng Bujua was pushed back by the shockwave, and he was still in a disadvantageous position in the air. The 2 on the other side have moved away. Even though he was in danger, Brother Ju's heart was calm and rational. His 5 senses were collecting information from his surroundings. I think I saw dogs and smoke earlier. Shadow must have played some trick on them to force them to react. He turned his attention back to Chao Xen. Regarding eunuch Chao, this old eunuch sure is a gentleman. Indeed, when Chao Xen saw the wound on Brother Ju's chest, he stopped moving. From the way he described Yuan Shi earlier, it was not hard to tell that Chao Xen did not like to bully others with numbers. Therefore, he decided to wait and see. He would observe the situation first before making a decision. Anyway, for the time being, I should only need to deal with Bloody Rose alone. After Feng Bujua looked around, he finally focused his attention on the opponent who was trying to kill him. By the way, it only took him 0.3 seconds to think about it. Bloody Rose, right? I have seen your post on the forum. After analyzing the situation, Feng Bujua began his battle. Everyone knew that when Brother Ju fought, it was unavoidable for him to argue with his opponent because language was one of his weapons. Oh, Bloody Rose threw 5 electric net grenades at Brother Ju and asked, "So what?" "Ha! You are very creative." Feng Bujua laughed and said, "Learn from me. How to cook. Ah, 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 ah." When he said the first half of the sentence, he instantly activated Body Enhancement spell, modified. Then he stepped sideways in midair and rushed out. As a result, when he spoke the second half of his sentence, he was hit by an electric grenade and was electrocuted for a few seconds by a spiderweb-shaped electric net. Even after suffering such a severe electric shock, he still managed to finish his trash talk. Seeing this scene, Bloody Rose couldn't help but admire him. Of course, she didn't admire Brother Ju's perseverance in trash talking. The thing about Feng Bujua that really impressed the man was, when he was surrounded by the electric grenades, he managed to grasp the situation in the blink of an eye and came up with the most correct solution: to sacrifice the pawn to save the card. Just now, Feng Bujue was surrounded by 5 electric grenades when he lost his momentum. In that situation, if he hesitated and worried about his gains and losses, he would have been hit by all 5 electric grenades. But Brother Ju did not hesitate to run in a straight line. At the cost of putting on an electric net, he rushed out of the electric net as fast as he could without making any big movements. Looks like I have no choice but to drink this. 2 seconds later, Feng Bujue finally steadied himself when he was about 10 meters away from his opponent. He removed the layer of electricity that had been drained from his body and gulped down a large bottle of life points recovery potion. 2. Before he could wipe his mouth clean, Bloody Rose had already taken out a perfect grade growth-type equipment, firearm, and fired at him, beating him until he was rolling on the ground. This is not going to be easy, Feng Bujue thought to himself as he ran. Looks like I used Mad Kill too early. The data shows that this woman has that summoned creature as her trump card. If I rush in recklessly, I'll most likely lose my life. He took the time to glance at Chao Xian. Sigh. If Eunuch Chao is more thick-skinned and joins her in attacking me, then I can use Frenzy to turn the tables. Unfortunately, it looks like this woman really doesn't want to make a move. After giving it some thought, Feng Bujue made up his mind. There's no other way. I'll have to call that woman out to help. Let's put aside the fact that Brother Ju had summoned the blood zombie god. On the other side of the cherry tree garden, 1 minute ago, after Tai Haidang fired her second shot, Hyacinth indicated that it was time for her to get up and move. The appearance of the smoke dog meant that Wang Tanji was nearby. He was most likely hiding behind the trunk of a certain tree or within the canopy of the tree. Although Haidang and Hyacinth were fighting 2 against 1, having the 2 of them, who only had seen mastery in fighting, face an assassin in the middle of a smoke screen, that was a bit of a suicide mission. Thus, after the 2 of them left the initial shooting location, they circled around the smoke screen and headed upwind. Since the dog came from upwind, the summoner was most likely there as well. However, as Haidang and Hyacinth were running, suddenly, a gunshot rang out, coming from tens of meters in front of the 2 of them. Tai Haidang, who specialized in shooting and firearms, immediately recognized that was not the sound of a modern gun. Instead, it was the sound of a flintlock. Strange. 3 seconds later, Haitang's expression changed. She turned to her teammate and said, "This shot seems to have been fired into the sky." Yes, it was fired into the sky. Before Hyacinth could say anything, another voice responded to Haidang. In that instant, Li Ruoyu's figure suddenly appeared 10 meters in front of them. How did you? Hyacinth was shocked. How did you appear here? Another voice spoke up, coming from the shadows of the trees. The one who spoke up was none other than Hua Jian. Since you'll find out when you watch the recording, there's no harm in telling you now. As they spoke, Xiao Tan appeared from the direction of the gunshot. In his hand was a black flintlock that was still emitting smoke. Chapter 1058. In Blackbeard's treasure space, Wang Tanji had lost 2 excellent quality weapons. However, he also successfully brought out the treasure of the 3 treasures from there. The first was a defensive item, the Shadow of the Knell. The second was a magical device, the Soul of the Wolf, Speed, and the third was the flintlock that he was holding. Name, Captain's Call item type, weapon quality, perfect defense points, medium element. Fire special effect 1. Every 10 minutes, a black iron pellet will be automatically generated in the barrel of the gun. This effect will take effect when the user enters the scenario. When the number of pellets in the scenario reaches 3, the effect will stop. When the number of pellets is less than 3, the effect will resume. Special effect 2. Fire into the sky and summon all characters who possess the black iron pellet. Cooldown time is 10 hours. 1 black iron pellet will be consumed every activation. When this effect is activated, there must be a reasonable and safe place for the summoned to stand beside the player. The summoned can reject the summoning request. Equip requirement: General ability A or marksmanship B. Remark: This gun has helped the captain many times to turn the situation around during negotiations. Sometimes it was also used by him to test the loyalty of the crew. One day, when he was drunk, he engraved a line of words on the body of the gun on a whim. "Everyone, come here." Other than that, the derivative of this gun also came with its own item description. Name: black iron pellet item type. Consumable, quality, excellent, function. Can be used as ammunition or a special beacon remark. Black iron pellets that are used as ammunition cannot be used as beacons anymore. Pellets that have been used as beacons will disappear. In conclusion, this captain's call was undeniably the reason why Ruo Yu and Hua Jian were able to arrive at this place in time. Half an hour after the scenario started, Xiao Tan had given 2 black iron pellets to Ruo Yu and Hua Jian respectively. As for the third pellet, it was naturally the one that he had fired into the sky earlier. Not long ago, when Ruo Yu was still fighting with Su Huaishang, Hua Jian, who was watching from the side, had already come up with a plan. Xiao Tan's disappearance was actually a strategic diversion. Blood Rose and the other two's reactions were just as Flowery Realm had expected. The level of the sword and saber duel earlier was indeed too high. I'm ashamed to say that I didn't have any room to help at all. Hua Jian looked at Haidang and Feng Xin in front of him and said so. I simply gave up on the idea of interfering. I chose to believe unconditionally that Sister Rain can win. She paused. If I think about it this way, I can focus on other things. For example, you purposely made the assassin disappear from our sight to put pressure on us. Hearing this, Hyacinth could vaguely guess what was going on. Not bad, Hua Jian replied. In fact, Xiao Tan didn't go far at that time. He just ran as fast as he could to the back of the group of martial arts masters and squatted down. But no matter what, as long as he can enter your blind spot, it's fine. She continued with a smile. Once you have the thought that the enemy has already made a move, you definitely won't be able to stay still. As she spoke, Hua Jian extended 3 fingers. Based on my deduction, there are only 3 possible actions that you could have taken. First, you could have charged into the sword and saber formation to help your captain. Under such circumstances, this was undoubtedly the worst plan. She paused for half a second. Second, you could have bypassed the killing formation and charged at me. You could have ignored Yuan Qi and the other martial arts masters and used all your strength to kill me. And this was the worst plan. In the end, you chose the best plan. At this moment, Xiaotan took over the conversation and said, "You simply turned around and left the front yard to try to find and kill Brother Zhu." He spread his hands. Unfortunately, this best plan was also within our predictions. Hey, it was my prediction, okay? Hua Jian complained to Xiaotan. Then, she turned to Red Cherry Blossom and said, "Anyway, this assassin of ours is very good at tracking. When the 3 of you left, he quickly followed you. The strategy 1 gave him was don't show up first, wait until the enemy attacks Feng Bujua, then launch a surprise attack. Because that should be the moment when your guard should be at its lowest." When she said this, Xiao Tan shook his head and sighed. Sigh, who knew that even when you were sniping Brother Zhu, the 3 of you didn't reveal any flaws. When Brother Zhu was about to get shot, I couldn't find a chance to sneak up on him. In a moment of desperation, I came up with the idea of using the dog to release a smoke bomb. Unfortunately, before the smoke bomb took effect, you had already fired 2 shots. You can probably guess what happened after that. Ruo Yu said coldly, "Xiao Tan used some kind of method to summon us instantly, and we appeared right in front of you." The 3 members of Underworld Frontline talked amongst themselves as they walked to Red Cherry Blossom's side and stood side by side. Even though I'm a little unwilling, Tai Haitang knew that she had lost the upper hand, but she had no intention of giving up. But looking at the situation before us, it seems like we've been tricked. That was a brilliant plan. Hyacinth added, "Even if the winner of that duel was our captain, you could still rely on the method of summoning your teammates to equalize the numbers of our forces. In other words, when we chose the so-called best plan, we could only equalize our numbers." Don't overestimate me. Hua Jian chuckled. "I'm not Feng Bujua. I don't have that kind of detailed calculation. Faced with that kind of sudden and unexpected change, I'm not as quick-witted as Xiao Tan. To be fair, if Sister Rain loses, I really don't know what to do. Maybe your captain will take advantage of the situation and kill me in a second. She replied calmly. Yes, you're already very strong. Like what you've done earlier, you've actually messed up our plan. Xiao Tan said, if not for Brother Ju's strength, if not for the fact that he survived the ambush during the fight with the boss, it would be hard to say what would have happened. Humph. Thank you for the compliment. Tai Haitang scoffed. At that moment, she turned her head slightly to give her teammates a look. But we haven't admitted defeat, yet Hyacinth understood what she meant. He quietly reached his hand into the backpack by his waist. That's right. You guys are using that line too early. When he finished, Hyacinth waved his hand, and a strange metal shard flew out. I knew it wouldn't be that easy. Hua Jian was prepared. He waved his staff and cast a spell. Name, Wall of Tidal Wave Skill Card Type. Active, Permanent Skill Type. Medic Effect, create a defensive force field that lasts for 3 seconds. Cooldown time is 10 minutes. The user can adjust the size and strength of the barrier according to their will, but the consumption will increase with the adjustment. Consumption, at least 30 spiritual energy points learning requirement. Medic Mastery Barrier Mark. A spell created by some high elf mutants who were exiled to the depths of the ocean. The caster can borrow the power of the god of the ocean to resist all tangible and intangible damage. At that moment, a bluish-green energy wall suddenly appeared with the sound of a tidal wave, blocking all the metal fragments. However, the wave of attacks did not end there. 2 seconds later, the metal shards grew and changed into metal insects that were the size of a thumb. They looked like bees. Since the tidal wall only lasted for 3 seconds, after 3 seconds, this half-energy, half-liquid wall disappeared. Thus, those metal bees, soaked in water, broke free from the wall's control and flew into the air. Let me do it. Looking at the metal bees that flew at him, Xiao Tan volunteered and jumped into the fray. When Ruo Yu and Hua Jian heard him say that, they dodged to the side without hesitation. They went around the swarm of bees and rushed toward the 2 members of Red Cherry Blossom who were running away. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The frequency of the bees' wings was very fast, and the sound they made was very similar to real bees. However, they were much more lethal than real bees. If a person was stung by these bees, the wound would not just swell up. The stingers of these metal bees were not only poisonous. After they used the stingers to cut a person's skin, they would try to crawl into the wound. Then they would drill into the body like a drill to cause further damage. It was worth noting that these mechanical killer bees were not dropped from the scenario world and were not a reward from the system. Instead, they were developed by Tai Haidang with her level workmanship mastery. Even though the production cost was high, part of the materials had to be found in specific scenario worlds, and they could not be mass-produced. In this competition, Hyacinth and Tai Haidang had each brought one of these items, about 25 of them, with them to deal with the situation that they were facing. They're not flying that fast, are they? At that moment, Wang Tanji, who was flying toward the bees, was calm and collected. If you look closely, isn't every one of them moving according to a certain movement pattern? At that moment, in Xiao Tan's eyes, the mechanical bees were flying so slowly that it was as if he was watching a slow-motion movie. Furthermore, with the size of these insects, there is no need to use the hidden blade to destroy them. I could just slash them. He did not realize that at that moment, he was already using the power of Soul's Eye. Shio, 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 shio. Altair's touch was unsheathed, and it shone brightly as it sliced through the wind. Xiaotan leaped into the air and charged into the swarm. In just 3 seconds, he used a set of precise movements to efficiently kill the 24 bees around him. Phew! He sighed in relief. Who would have thought? As he spoke, he swung his hand behind his neck without turning back. TZZT. The last mechanical bee was pierced by the tip of the hidden blade and instantly exploded. So easy. Then, Xiao Tan finished the sentence that he had been mumbling. On the other hand, at Feng Bujue's side, Not again. The bloody corpse god, who morphed into light, said impatiently, "Didn't we agree not to call me out unless there's nothing important?" Hearing what he said, it seems like at some point in time that we don't know, he and Feng Bujua discussed something again. Of course, as the author, I can reveal the general situation. The experience of encountering the god of eternal life on Planet Bunny and the process of coming into contact with the six-fold mirror demon with Brother Jew had a certain influence on the bloody corpse god. After coming to the world of Thriller Paradise, he had seen many very powerful existences. Under the stimulation of these creatures, the evolutionary instinct of this Inhua mutant awakened again after many years. Recently, he seemed to be preparing to break through some kind of bottleneck. To put it simply, it was like the seclusion of a martial arts master. Therefore, he purposely told Feng Bujua not to disturb him unless it was absolutely necessary. Brother Ju naturally relayed this to his teammates. If not for that, when they were at the front yard earlier, Flowery and Xiao Tan would have called for the bloody corpse god's help. If that happened, Red Cherry would have been wiped out. Yes, that's a promise. Feng Bujue used a lazy tone to reply. So, you should understand that something is going on now. TSK. The bloody corpse god still looked displeased. Fine. He glanced at the bloody Rose, who was 10 meters away. He did not seem to be interested in her. Then, he turned to look at Xiao Xin, who was 10 meters away. Oh, that one seems edible. After going through so many scenarios, the bloody corpse god knew how to differentiate between players and NPCs. From the perspective of a foodie, the former would turn into white light after death, and the latter would turn into delicious food. The one that can be eaten, I'll deal with him. Feng Bujua volunteered to fight Xiao Xine. Your skill, he did not mention the projection of fear, should be useless against him. With your current condition, you might not be his match. The bloody corpse god wanted to say, you know that my body is not in good condition, and you still call me out? But he thought about it and did not say that. He only scoffed and said, fine, then I'll deal with this tiger rider. Before he finished, Feng Bujua's body flashed, and he charged at Xiao Xine. As he did so, he shouted, Eunuch Xiao, sorry to keep you waiting. You want to run? The bloody Rose saw the man charge at her, and she turned to give chase. But the bloody corpse god's large body suddenly appeared, and he blocked her path. Mississippi, the bloody corpse god stopped a beauty, but his eyes did not fall on the beauty's body. Instead, he looked at the woman's crotch. Your tiger looks delicious. Chapter 10:59. When Yuan Shi and the group of martial artists who had finished regulating their qi reached the cherry tree garden, they immediately saw this scene. They saw a weirdo who looked 30% like a human and 70% like a corpse chasing after a woman who was riding a tiger. The tiger was also very strange. It had two extremely long fangs that stuck out of its mouth. Its size and fur were the best they had ever seen. Of course, compared to the giant eagle and the stone bird monster that this woman rode in the Broken Soul Gorge, this tiger was already considered quite normal. This group of Jianghu experts had already seen countless strange things that subverted their common sense and worldview. At this moment, there was basically no setting that they could not accept. Alliance Master. Look, soon, someone noticed the other two figures in the garden. Those two people were naturally Feng Bujue and Chao Qin. Alliance Master, should we? When a faction leader was about to ask Yuan Shi if they wanted to help, Yuan Shi stopped him. Before he could finish, Yuan Shi waved his hand and said, no. Although his response was a little heartless, everyone understood. After all, they were too weak. Even if they helped, they would probably die in vain. They might even become a burden to Feng Bujue. To their surprise, Yuan Shi added, I'll go alone. You guys stay here. As soon as he said that, everyone looked at him with admiration. Then, the crowd started to clamor. People started to say things like, Alliance Master is so righteous. Alliance Master is really a hero of the age. And I've never admired anyone in my life, but today, I'm convinced. Yuan Shi did not pay much attention to it. He waited for a few seconds and continued. Everyone, Chao Qin's martial arts are so high that it's hard to estimate. Although we haven't seen him fight from the skills of his disciple, the King of Hell, he's definitely not a normal person. He paused. As for Master Feng's martial arts, everyone has seen his wife's swordsmanship. It's not an exaggeration to say that it's the skills of a god. At this point, he paused for a moment to give everyone some time to think. The martial arts of these two are beyond our reach. Even I do not have the confidence to interfere with their victory. Yuan Yu continued, but if I don't get involved in this mess today, if Master Feng loses in the end, Chao Xian will definitely come after us. At that time, we'll still be dead. The more he spoke, the more solemn his expression became. Sigh. In any case, whether we can leave Buried Heart Valley alive today, I'm afraid it'll depend on the will of the heavens. After he finished speaking, he stopped and looked ahead, remaining silent for a moment. Then, as if he had made up his mind about something important, the look in his eyes changed, and he rushed out. On the other hand, 15 minutes ago, Unit Chao, sorry to keep you waiting. When Feng Bujue returned to Chao Xian, he first greeted him. It's fine. I gotta watch a good show. As Chao Xian replied, he tilted his head and looked at the bloody corpse god and bloody rose in the distance. Speaking of which, that lady and her companions seemed to have all kinds of strange skills like the broken sword Chahitsu. His expression changed slightly. Who are you people? What if I tell you that we're all from outer space or the projection of another world? Feng Bujue asked tentatively. Will you stop fighting me? Oh, when Chao Xian heard this, he narrowed his eyes and fell into deep thought. From the perspective of an NPC, his level was undoubtedly very high. His strength was definitely one of a kind. Moreover, the planet he was on was also in the main universe. However, from the background of the character's world, he was just an ancient person who lived in a Confucian world. Due to the limited level of natural science and knowledge in the world he lived in, it was difficult for Chao Xian to understand the concept of dimensions. In a technology-oriented world, even some NPCs with a low education level could know this information. In the mythological and magical worlds, there were existences like high gods who were almost omniscient. As for the world Chao Xian lived in, it was more unfortunate. If the NPCs here wanted to rely on themselves to perceive the existence of dimensions, they could only rely on methods like entering Tao or becoming Buddha. However, this world was not the kind of place that was very convenient for cultivation. There were no cultivation sects here. There were no cultivation techniques, pills, magic treasures, and so on. In this world, if one wanted to cultivate, they either had to practice martial arts or Zen. The former required one to practice to the transcendent realm before one could touch the threshold of cultivation. The latter was more difficult than the former. As mentioned earlier, there were no cultivation techniques or pills here. Therefore, before a cultivator entered the most basic level of foundation establishment, there was no way to increase one's lifespan. Unless you were the kind of person who had amazing comprehension ability and was born like a living Buddha. Otherwise, to rely on meditation to possess the power of Buddhism, it was absolutely impossible to do so without a lifespan of 180 years. In summary, although Eunuch Chao was very strong, the extraterrestrial projection theory, mentioned by Feng Bujue, was still new to him. It was also new and hard to believe. Ha! Ha! After thinking for about a minute, Chao Xian laughed. This theory is really hard to believe, but if what you said is true, all the doubts that have been bothering me so far have a reasonable answer. As expected of Eunuch Chao, with this perspective, you're much stronger than most people in the world. Feng Bujue was once a person who did not believe in ghosts, so he could understand how Chao Xian was feeling. It was probably similar to when he first met Woody. Be it Changlin Town or the summit of the Forbidden City, Chao Xian did not respond to Brother Bujue's compliment, but continued. And today, you people appeared out of nowhere and then disappeared in light. After so many years, you still look the same. Plus the skills, spells, and strange weapons that you used, they do not seem to belong to this world. The more he spoke, the faster he spoke. This was a sign that his mind had cleared up. Humph, what a broken sword, Chahitsu. I finally understand your secret. Haha. Chao Xen finally let go of his fear. As mentioned earlier, a person like him could accept others being stronger than him. What he was afraid of was the unknown. Looks like I should have told you this earlier. Seeing the man's reaction, Feng Bujue replied, if that was the case. He turned to look at Lin Yan's body. Things would not have come to this. You seem to be very conflicted about Lin Yan's death. Chao Xian looked at his brother Bujue and said, to be honest, I did not want to kill her, Feng Bujue answered. She was a pitiful person. She did not do anything wrong. His eyes sharpened. The person who is wrong is you. Chao Xian nodded. You're right. I am not her savior, but her enemy. The enemy who ruined her life for more than 40 years. But to complete your dream, this level of sacrifice is not something you would care about, Feng Bujue said darkly. Huh. Chao Xian laughed again, but this time it was a bitter laugh. How do you know I don't care? Do you care? Feng Bujue's expression changed slightly. I did not care at first, Chao Xian replied. At least, when I planned to kill her mother, I did not hesitate at all. Then you changed your mind? Feng Bujue asked again. Yes, Chao Xian said. Why? Feng Bujue asked. Because of love, Chao Xian said. A person like you still has feelings? Feng Bujue asked. I'm also a person, Chao Xian said. The human heart is made of flesh. No matter how detached a person is, they will still have feelings. Ha! I thought you had already lost your heart. Feng Bujue sneered. Chao Xian sighed. Indeed, I have killed many people. Among them, there were good people and bad people, but most of them were innocent people, the so-called sacrifices. I, Chao Xian, have been in court for more than 60 years. The number of evil deeds I have done is beyond anyone's imagination. In my position, if I did not throw my conscience to the back of my mind, I would have gone mad or committed suicide long ago. At this point, he changed the topic. At first, I also thought that I was heartless and heartless. But Lin Yin changed my mind. He paused for a second and continued. Lin Yin was brought up by me. She has been obedient, sensible, and intelligent since she was a child. She sincerely treats me like a father. She has no idea that I am her biggest enemy. Her family's misfortune is directly related to me. In fact, I was the one who caused it. So, you gradually felt guilty. Feng Bujue looked directly into Chao Xian's eyes. He could feel that Chao Xian was not acting, and there was no need for him to act like this. That's right. I'm the one who should feel guilty, not you. Chao Qin shook his head. Until you killed her, Lin Yin didn't blame me. In her heart, I will always be the benefactor who raised her, the foster father. He clenched his fist. Even if I don't have any affection for her, at least I feel guilty. Ha! Hearing this, Feng Bujue laughed. Eunuch Chao, it seems that's all there is to you. What did you say? Hearing this, Chao Xian's expression changed. A feeling of uneasiness rose rapidly in his heart. Do you really think that Lin Yin didn't know that you had something to do with her mother's death? Feng Bujue immediately replied. At that moment, Chao Xian's expression changed drastically. Do you understand now? Feng Bujue knew that the man was a clever man, and he understood the situation immediately. You said it yourself that she is exceptionally clever. How could she not have realized the truth after 40 years? Then why did she? Chao Xian stuttered. Because she also had feelings. Feng Bujue interrupted. She made a choice between hatred and kindness, so she chose to hate me. She hated someone she had never met before and would probably never meet again. She transferred all her hatred to me so that she could live an easier life. She could continue to see you as her benefactor, her father. His tone was not agitated, but every word he said struck Chao Xian's soul. In fact, she lived a very painful life, more painful than you can imagine, until today. Today, Chao Xian's eyes widened, and his body began to tremble. It doesn't matter if you, as her master, noticed it or not, but I did, Feng Bujua said. When we fought, although Lin Yan was very agitated, but she didn't use her full strength. Regardless of whether this is done subconsciously or on purpose, what I can tell is that compared to killing me, she is more willing to be killed by me. Lin Yan, Chao Xian turned to look at Lin Yan's body. She sighed. I'm dead. Who else can she hate? Feng Bujua sighed. Chao Xian choked. He lowered his head and murmured, what a silly child. He could no longer suppress his emotions. His eyes were wet. Over the past few decades, Chao Xian's face had always been indifferent or smiling. He had long forgotten the uncontrollable feeling of grief and sorrow surging out his heart. Even at the moment of Lin Yan's death, he only showed a brief moment of shock and anger. He almost immediately suppressed his outburst of emotions and put on his usual expression. However, at this moment, Chao Xian was on the verge of losing control. After a moment of silence, Chao Xian wiped his face and adjusted his expression. Master Feng, I'm sorry. I lost my composure. It's all right. It's human nature, Feng Bujua said. Do you still remember my 12 unique skills? In the next second, Chao Qin suddenly changed the topic. What? Feng Bujua asked. Do you still want to teach me more? No, I didn't mean that. Chao Xian's tone was much gentler. He seemed more like an elder now. There was a hint of weariness in his eyes. I just want to make a deal with you. Time returned to the present. Yuan Qi used his lightness skill and dashed through the forest. In the blink of an eye, he was next to Chao Xian and Feng Bujua. As for Chao Xian and Feng Bujua, they seemed to have agreed on something and were waiting for something. Master Feng, I'm here to help you. When Yuan Qi was about 5 to 6 meters away from them, he yelled as he drew the cloth sword from his waist. Who knew? Alliance Master Yuan, you're just in time. Feng Bujua turned around and said, We've been waiting for you. WH. What? Yuan Qi was stunned when he heard that. Alliance Master Yuan thought to himself, It can't be, right? Did these two demons form an alliance? Are they trying to destroy the world? Then, Feng Bujua threw out a question. Alliance Master Yuan, are you interested in becoming the most powerful person in the martial arts world? He asked this question as if he was asking, Are you interested in going out for a walk with me? Huh? Yuan Qi was obviously unable to react. If you are, let's make a deal. Feng Bujua did not wait for Yuan Qi's reply and continued. As long as you follow my arrangements, you can still be the leader of the martial arts world after today. Also, you can learn several martial arts that are not inferior to the Destiny mysterious skill. As for the group of martial arts masters you brought with you, I'll teach you how to explain it to them. I guarantee that you'll be able to fool them without any repercussions. Yuan Qi was already tempted when he heard that. Of course, if you don't want to follow my arrangements, that's fine too. After a moment, Feng Bujua's lazy face instantly changed into an evil smile. He continued, Then I'll join forces with Eunuch Chao and play with all of you. Chapter 1060. Haitang and Hyacinth did not survive for too long under the pursuit of Ruo Yu and Huajian. Even though they had used various methods to fight and retreat, and even released the second batch of killer bees to delay them, Ruo Yu still had a clear advantage in terms of individual ability. Even though Ruo Yu had not activated her soul's eye, with her physical skills, she was able to suppress these two grade C fighting ability players. Furthermore, she had Huajian by her side. Since both sides had medical support players, and they had an equal number of players, to put it bluntly, it was a battle to see how strong the other main player was. Obviously, in this kind of terrain and distance, the marksmanship players were at a disadvantage. Running into an opponent like Ruoyu, they could only admit that they were unlucky. Therefore, after about 10 minutes of running, attacking, defending, and fighting, the news of Tai Haidang and Hyacinth's deaths reached their teammates' ears. By then, Blood Rose had been forced into a corner by the Blood Corpse God. Even though the Blood Corpse God was not at his peak, Activating fear projection in a small area was still quite easy for him. Under the pressure of the terror points, Blood Rose's performance was obviously affected. Facing a boss-level summoned creature like the Blood Corpse God that had incredibly powerful physical skills and high-speed regeneration, once she lost her cool, it was impossible to turn the tables around. To make matters worse, Wang Tanji soon arrived to help the Blood Corpse God. Therefore, Blood Rose's last hope of survival, which was to survive until the Blood Corpse God's duration ran out, was shattered. At this point in the semi-finals, the result was already clear. In the morning, the soft light filtered through the fog and lit up the cherry garden with a pink glow. At that moment, on the falling cherry blossoms, a cold, lifeless body was slowly regaining its body temperature. Her chest started to rise and fall again. Her cheeks gradually became rosy. Her face, skin, and body had returned to the state of a young girl. Not long after that, Lin Yin opened her eyes. The first person she saw was Feng Bujue. You? Lin Yin didn't show much emotion. She was still a little confused. Is this a dream? No. At this time, Feng Bujue was sitting cross-legged beside her. He stared at her with his dead fish eyes and said, "If you have something that can only be said to me in the dream, or something that can only be done to me in the dream, I advise you to give up the idea immediately." His words made Lin Yin sober up a lot. Lin Yin propped herself up. "I didn't die. He's dead," Feng Bujue replied. "He's been dead for about the time it takes to brew a cup of tea." Lin Yin originally wanted to ask something, but when the words came to her mouth, her eyes just happened to sweep across Chao Qin, who was not far away. At this time, Yuna Chao was sitting under a cherry tree. For some unknown reason, his black hair had turned completely white, and his skin had become shriveled and covered with wrinkles. But Lin Yin recognized him at a glance. Even though she aged a few decades in an instant, she still recognized that this old man was her adoptive father. "Adoptive father," Lin Yin called out tenderly. She quickly got up and walked over. She grabbed the old man's arm and asked with concern, "Adoptive father, what happened to you?" "Ha! Adoptive father is fine." Chao Qin's face revealed a gratified smile. He looked deeply at Lin Yin. "I am just tired. I should rest." This. Lin Yan's eyes instantly moistened. She turned around in grief and anger and glared at Feng Bujue. "Did that surname Feng do something to you? Hey, are you blaming me again?" Feng Bujue said as he stood up and patted the dust off his body. "No, Yinner, you misunderstood." Chao Qin's voice was weak, but he still tried his best to raise his voice. "If it wasn't for Master Feng, you wouldn't have been able to come back from the dead." "What?" Lin Yin looked at Chao Qin in confusion. What happened?" To put it simply, Feng Bujue saw that Chao Qin was having difficulty speaking. So he took the lead and said, "Your adoptive father sacrificed his cultivation and combined it with my special cultivation method to bring you back to life." Actually, it wasn't that complicated to explain in detail. First, Chao Qin passed all the power of the ultimate technique he learned when he entered the Dao fruit technique, one of Yuna Chao's two secret techniques, the other being the Sunflower Manual, to Feng Bujue. Then, Brother Ju used the instantaneous output of the NPC burning his own data to increase the effectiveness of rewrite in one go. In the following period of time, rewrite's effect wasn't just to rewind a target to the state they were in a few seconds ago. This ability could actually do a lot of things within a few seconds. Feng Bujue completed a series of simulations in his mind. Then, by rewriting and guiding the data, he transferred the immortal power, the ability to resurrect once, granted to him by the staff of Asclepius, to Lin Yin, and made slight adjustments to the effect. As a result, the scene of him coming back from the dead was played out. Of course, there was a reason why Feng Bujue used the word simple to describe it to Lin Yin. First, it was because Lin Yin wouldn't understand the meaning of words like rewrite even if she heard it. Second, it was because if he said the name of this move during the competition, it would leak information. "Adoptive father, is this true?" Lin Yin looked at Chao Qin. "Yin. Chao Qin didn't answer this question because he didn't have the energy to say another word. At this moment, this peerless master's face was full of exhaustion. He saved the last of his strength just to finish what he wanted to say. Adoptive father. No, Chao Qin. I'm sorry. Chao Qin's breathing became heavy. Adoptive father. You? What do you mean? Lin Yin was very smart. She had already vaguely guessed something, but she didn't want to expose it. You shouldn't hate Feng Bujue. The person you should hate is me, Chao Qin said. I'm the one who killed you. No. Adoptive father. Lin Yin interrupted him firmly. Don't say anything. Sit down first. I'll use my energy to heal you. Oh, silly child. Chao Qin smiled bitterly and replied, My pulse. Does it look like it can withstand the energy transfer? Lin Yan's expression changed when she heard this. She became hopeless and helpless. If it weren't for the huge fluctuations in her emotions and thoughts, Lin Yan would have noticed when she grabbed Chao Qin's arm. Eunuch Chao's body was like a building that could collapse at any time. All the pillars and walls in the building had been removed or damaged. Even a light breeze from the outside could make him collapse completely. Lin Yan's eyes were unfocused. She took deep breaths and tried her best to calm herself down and think of a way. Master Feng. She was very smart, so she quickly thought of the only feasible way. Lin Yan suddenly rushed in front of Feng Bujue and knelt down heavily. She shouted herself hoarse, Please save my adoptive father. This. Feng Bujue only had time to reply with one word. Lin Yan was already kowtowing on the ground. I beg you. As long as you save my adoptive father, I'm willing to do anything. I'll be your slave. Get up. Brother Ju supported her with one hand and stopped her from hurting herself further. He shook his head and sighed. Your adoptive father didn't save you to see you become someone's slave. If you don't save him, I won't get up. Lin Yin was still kneeling. However, Feng Bujue held her by the shoulder, so she couldn't kowtow anymore. It's not that I don't want to save him, it's that I can't, Feng Bujue said again. No, you can even save a dead person. Lin Yin didn't seem to want to accept the truth. She sobbed and begged, I beg you, Master Feng, please, enough. Feng Bujue shouted. Lin Yin stopped crying in fright. Your adoptive father gave up his cultivation, gave up his immortality, and even gave up his dreams. All for the sake of giving you a second chance in this world. Brother Ju said sternly to Lin Yin. This is the way he chose to save himself. You should help him. Lin Yin was rendered speechless by his words. She suddenly turned around and crawled to Chao Xian's side. Adoptive father. Lin Yin choked with sobs. She wanted to say something, but she couldn't find the words to express herself. I understand, Chao Qin said. I understand. He shook his head. Unfortunately, I understood it too late. He paused for a few seconds before saying with difficulty, listen to me. He took a deep breath and prepared to say the last thing he wanted to say. Adoptive father has done a lot of evil in my life. In the first half of my life, I was ambitious and killed countless people for my own selfish desires. In the second half of my life, I believed that I had transcended the mortal world and pursued righteousness, but I still killed countless people. At the end of the day, I was just looking for different excuses for my actions. Master Feng is right. Regardless of whether this world becomes what I want it to be, people like me are not tolerated. People like me are not worthy of your forgiveness, and I'm not worthy of your gratitude. Today, to be able to use my life in exchange for yours, I can die without regrets. Adoptive father. Lin Yin sobbed softly. She didn't dare to interrupt Chao Qin because she was afraid that he wouldn't be able to speak again. Yin, Chao Qin continued, I know that you're kind by nature. In fact, you don't want to hate anyone, but in order to be my chess piece, in order to become the kind of person I want you to become, you force yourself to hate Feng Bujue. You forced yourself to become the king of hell. When he said this, his face was pale. From today onwards, don't do this anymore. You have to live well, live for yourself. After all, he was a grandmaster. Even though he was on the verge of death, he was still able to complete a sentence. Master Feng and I have already made arrangements. From today onwards, the king of hell is dead, and the only one alive is Lin Yan. No matter if it's the martial world or the imperial court, no one will come to ask about you anymore. You can leave this valley and go outside to live the life you want. In the end, Chao Qin couldn't finish what he wanted to say. Life was always like this. There was no such thing as everything is ready, and no one could be foolproof. Everyone came to this world in different degrees of panic, and they would all leave in an instant when they least expected it. If regret was a kind of beauty, then only those with a strong heart would know how to appreciate it. It was late autumn, and the sun was setting. For the first time in decades, the fog in Buried Heart Valley dissipated. Yesterday, many people came here, and most of them stayed on this land forever. However, there were still some people who left alive. Feng Bujue and his teammates left. They morphed into white light and disappeared. They did not say goodbye to anyone. Yuan Shi and the surviving martial artists also left. When Alliance Master Yuan left, he took with him Chao Xian's instructions, as well as the secret manuals of breathless skill, divine skill of 4 symbols, and mountain-moving iron hands. It could be said that he had returned from a rewarding journey. Later on, the title of Alliance Master of Wulin accompanied Yuan Shi for many years. Who would have thought that this mediocre person who had accomplished nothing before the age of 30 would become an immortal legend in the Jianghu? After that day, he was not only the Alliance Master in name, but also the Supreme Master of Wulin who was invincible in the world. Under Yuan Shi's leadership, the entire Jianghu was peaceful and prosperous. Ironically, 100 years after Yuan Shi's death, an unprecedented dispute erupted in the martial arts world for the sake of fighting for the position of the Alliance Master and the martial arts legacy Yuan Shi left behind. In the end, the imperial court took advantage of the situation and stepped in to reap the benefits. Since then, there was no Jianghu in this world. How long did one live? Time passed like the frost in the morning. Time passed, and the sun was no longer bright. Decades later, it was the same late autumn. A woman was leading a camel to the Heartbreak Villa. The sea had turned into mulberry fields, and the once prosperous villa was now left with broken fences and ruined walls. However, the strange cherry blossoms that bloomed in autumn still bloomed on time every year. In the morning, the woman came to a cherry blossom tree. She looked at the cherry blossom tree in front of her and stood there for a few seconds. Then, she untied a pot of wine from the belt around her waist and took a sip. She was a little tipsy and recited, "My generation comes out of the world. Once I enter the Jianghu, time passes quickly. While I talk and laugh about my ambition, life is nothing but a drunken life." As she recited, she stretched her fingers and lowered the pot of wine, allowing the wine to drip to the bottom of the tree. Holding the sword, riding the horse, and waving the phantom rein, skeletons fly away like birds in the mountains. Mortal affairs are like the tide, people are like the water, only a few people in the Jianghu will. The wine had run dry, but the poem was not finished yet. Her voice was still very pleasant, but her tone was tired. She still looked young, but her eyes were full of vicissitudes. Returning home, my heart is weary, beautiful white hair is born in gauze. Don't ask about the 3,000 affairs of the mortal world. Pick the flower and finish the wine in the cup. She tilted her head back and poured the last few drops of wine in her mouth before she turned around. At this time, a gust of wind blew by and blew her long hair. It was white hair. It was as white as snow. Beneath the fluttering white hair was the face of a young girl. Every year on this day, she would come back here. Perhaps she was just here to see an old friend and reminisce. Or perhaps she was looking forward to a reunion, a meeting. Chapter 1061. At 1:15 in the morning, the first match of the semifinals, Hell Frontline versus Red Sakura, came to an end. In the end, Hell Frontline won another round with no casualties. At this point, Hell Frontline, a team formed entirely by non-professional players, became the first team to officially enter the finals. Moreover, in the process of their advancement, they had never been killed by the enemy. The only time they died was when they killed each other. This kind of strength had already made them the hot favorites to win the championship. Next, there was a 3-minute break. This 3 minutes naturally referred to the 3 minutes in the real world. In the game world, the next 30 minutes were all rest time. Even if they were in sleep mode, the audience would feel tired after watching the competition for more than 10 hours. Hence, there was no need to rush to the second match. At such a time, inserting advertisements or something was the right thing to do. Other than that, the host from Dream Incorporated, since this match was split into different times, there was a commentary, and the viewers could choose whether to accept the commentary or not. Also used this time to summarize the results of the first match. What they said was mostly content targeted at the grassroots audience. It was nothing more than the strength of the members of the two teams, their improvisation, strategic deployment, and so on. Of course, it was impossible for them to say anything in depth. If they were to say anything particularly detailed, it was very likely that they would reveal information about the two teams. After chatting for about 15 minutes, the online director felt that it was about time. Then, he sent a signal to the hosts. Hence, the hosting team stopped talking about the first match and started the pre-match prediction for the second match, Trash Alliance versus World of Martial Arts. The matches in the semifinals were all very interesting to watch, and this match was no exception. First of all, World of Martial Arts was a well-known studio. It could be said to be the leader of the medium-sized studios. Their reputation, individual strength, and so on were all very outstanding. Many people in the industry believed that if their company was as big as Order or Brahma, the current situation of 2 strong competitors might become 3 strong competitors. In this match, Pugilistic World's performance was commendable. Other than Laughing Blade and Sword, who had been famous for a long time, there was also Not a Scaredy Cat and Buchinga. Of these two, Not a Scaredy Cat had recently become a professional player, while Buchinga was a former member of Stardust. Both of them used their battle results in League S2 to prove that they had the ability to enter the front line. Then, he looked at the Trash Alliance. Although this team didn't have a studio background, their 4 main players were all professional players who fought in the game under their own names. Moreover, they were all recognized as the top players in S1, or even earlier. The word Alliance perfectly reflected the team's form and spirit. Their path of advancement was very similar to that of the Underworld frontline. Most of the time, they were completely victorious, and they gave people the feeling that they were at ease. In summary, it was really hard to say who would win the confrontation between these two teams. At 1:19 a.m., the second semifinal officially began. The scenario that the two teams were randomly sent to was a place called Moving Maze. This maze had the characteristic of being constantly changing, and the maze was filled with all kinds of powerful monsters. Other than that, there were 2 NPC forces from different factions that were active in the maze. They were obviously important characters who could influence the outcome of the battle. In terms of members, Trash Alliance's lineup was unshakable. Uncle Trash, Swan, King of Shadows, and Sleepy Dream were in charge of the competition, while Teacher Chi was in charge of being a bystander. However, Pugilistic World's formation was rather surprising. They sent out Bladeless Swordsman, Blade Runner, Not a Scaredy Cat, and Buchinga to participate in the competition, but they sent Enigma in the Heavens, who had the highest individual ranking in terms of the team, and was the team leader as a substitute. Outsiders might not understand the situation, but the upper management of Pugilistic World knew that this was Enigma in the Heavens' intention. As mentioned earlier, Pugilistic World was a studio created by Laughing Blade, Sword, and Blade. They were not only online players, but also real-life company managers. Different from Jean Fugue's Frost King, the 3 of them did not have rich fathers to invest in them. They started from scratch. Under such circumstances, it was obviously unrealistic to hire someone to manage the company for them. In the early days of the studio's establishment, the 3 of them were doing the work of 18 people. From the CEO to the cleaners, the 3 of them had done everything. Only then did they slowly make a name for themselves. Today, Pugilistic World's business was growing. Even though they no longer needed to rely on themselves to clean and buy lunchboxes, they slowly realized that it was time for the days of managing both the game and the company to come to an end. Shiva from Brahmin might be the boss of studio and a player, but he was the chairman. Other than some important decisions, most of the daily work could be left to his subordinates. However, Pugilistic World's situation was different. They were at a turning point. If they wanted to expand the company, they had to make a decision. Therefore, Smiling Question of the Heavens made his choice. His plan was to first fade out and then retire. Then, he would put all his focus on the company's operations and strive to make Pugilistic World a first-tier studio within a year. When everything was on track, he would consider whether he should make a comeback as a player. Of course, he knew very well that in esports, there were very few players who could make a comeback successfully, especially those events that required stamina and reaction time. Usually, once a player was over 25 years old, their overall condition would start to decline. If they stopped training for a period of time, there was an 80% chance that they would not be able to return to their previous condition. Enigmatic Smile had thought about it before. Instead of letting the fans lament Lien Po's old age and the player's declining condition, it would be better for him to retire while he was still in good condition. Enigmatic Smile had originally not wanted to participate in the S2 competition, but to help the new players and ensure that they could go further in the competition, he still took some time out to participate in some of the preliminaries. Now that the team had reached the semifinals, he felt that the time had come. Even if they won this match, there was only one match left, so Enigmatic Smile decided not to participate in this match. Whether they won or lost, this match would allow Not a Scaredy Cat and Little Boo, these two rising stars, to gain more experience. In the future, there might be more situations that required their help. At 2:40 a.m., or 13 and a half hours later, the result of the second match of the semifinals was announced. This match ended with the victory of the Trash Alliance. Even though it took longer than the first match, it was not a stalemate. Ambition's plan had given the loser alliance an advantage, and the detection abilities of King of Shadows summoned creatures could be said to be impenetrable. Therefore, since the start of the match, they had the advantage in terms of information and strategy. And the members of Pugilistic World were in a state where they were constantly running for their lives. Theoretically speaking, in this situation, if they were not careful, they would lose members or even be wiped out, but Pugilistic World relied on their own strength to hold on for more than 10 hours. But in the end, Trash Alliance won without even using their full strength. Mysterious strength, mysterious limit. Just like Underworld Frontline, another team that did not come from a gaming studio had entered the finals. There was still a 3-minute break. The advertisers couldn't wait any longer. The hosts were also very busy. While the contestants were resting, they couldn't rest. During the course of the competition, the hosts had many opportunities to take a break. After all, they didn't have content to talk about every minute. Analysis and commentary during the competition were indispensable. Although Pugilistic World had lost, and it was a terrible loss, the hosts and the audience still had high praises for them. The two rookies in Pugilistic World who had stood out were also highly praised. The result of this match also proved that sometimes losing miserably did not mean losing miserably. Perhaps there was a gap in strength between him and his opponent, but as long as he did his best within the scope of his abilities, he could win respect even if he lost. As for Trash Alliance, the hosts were also full of praises. Under the director's instructions, they began to consciously compare this team with Hell Frontline, who had just finished the competition. At 2:44 a.m., the third semi-final match began. Warring States vs. Mountain River. Before the match, the predictions for this match could be said to be one-sided. Even the official hosts, who were supposed to maintain an objective and neutral attitude, revealed a message in their words. Mountain River was probably in danger. Indeed, Mountain River was a very strong studio. With Pikachu, oh no, with Autumn Wind as the leader and Matcha Cookie as the vice leader, Mountain River 1 could be said to be the strongest in history. But after watching the last semifinals, even the analysis team of Mountain River believed that the chance of defeating warring states was very slim. Regarding the individual strength of the members of Sengoku, the conclusion was not very optimistic. Putting aside the prejudice against foreign studios and objectively analyzing it, Sengoku, Team 1 strength was at the level of gods and order before entering the semifinals. Although their strength had been affirmed by many, due to various reasons, they were still underestimated. It was not until Sengoku stood in front of the threshold of the finals that people seemed to realize their captain had defeated the previous champion in a one-on-one battle. Their road to promotion was all about cutting the Gordian knot and using strength to break the skill. So far, their team members had never been defeated in a one-on-one battle. The reason why Sengoku Team 1 did not rank in the top 10 in the preliminaries was not because they were not strong enough, but simply because they were almost arrogant in terms of strategy. Most of the time, they did not consider using power at all, so in many games, they won with the power of both the enemy team members and NPCs. But in the semifinals, their style changed slightly. Although it was only slightly, they had indeed become cautious. At least they would not ignore the power of NPCs or rush into obvious traps. To defeat Sengoku, Mountain River needed a miracle. At 2:52 a.m., the miracle did not happen. The competition that lasted for 80 minutes ended just like that. Autumn Wind had tried his best. Only half an hour after the scenario started, he had successfully gained the support of the NPC force. Then, he used 100,000 volts. Oh no! He mobilized 100,000 soldiers, the force of the scenario, armed with cold weapons, to surround the 4 members of the enemy team. And he realized that everyone in Sengoku team had a lot of experience in mowing. Each of them killed an average of 320 enemies per minute, and they could complete 1,000 kills in 3 minutes. So 4 of them would be 4,000 kills. Based on this speed, the 100,000 soldiers would only be able to hold on for 1.5 hours. Thankfully, the 100,000 NPCs were not idiots. 7 to 8 minutes later, when they realized that they had lost more than 10,000 soldiers and the enemy did not show any sign of fatigue, they decided to run. Or else, the audience would have to watch the mowing for 1.5 hours. Therefore, the power that Mountain River borrowed was reduced to nothing by the enemy's power. Seeing this, Matcha Cookie used the trump card that she had planned to use in the finals, a trump card that she could only use once. She used her level S workmanship mastery to create a Gundam. However, the 4 from Sengoku team used their swords to dismantle the Gundam. At this point, there was no more suspense in this competition. Just like that, the 3 matches were over and the 3 finalists were decided. The last match would decide the final spot in the finals. And the 2 sides of this match were enough to carry the heavy responsibility of being the finale. Regulation vs. Brahmin. The words "tournament for the best" were the best way to describe the outcome of this battle. But, just as the people's blood was boiling, the Dream Company suddenly poured a bucket of cold water over them. Important notice: all players, please take note. All players, please take note. In order not to affect the players' daily lives, we have negotiated with the members of both teams and have decided that the 4th semi-final match, Brahmin versus Order, will be postponed until tomorrow at midnight. Today's match will end here. Chapter 1062, November 15th, 11 a.m. Inside a residential building in City S, a 17-year-old boy was slowly waking up from his coma. He took several seconds to get used to the light in the room, and he finally got a good look at his surroundings. The first thing that entered his eyes were 3 figures. They were 3 men in dark jackets, jeans, and ski masks. At that moment, they were sitting around a table, smoking and playing cards. Seeing the boy wake up, the 3 of them glanced at him casually, but they did not give him much of a reaction. As for the youth, he immediately fell into a state of panic, because he immediately realized that he was tied to a chair. Not only were his hands tied, but his waist, and legs were also tied to the chair. He was in a state where he could not move at all. In addition, his mouth was also taped up and he could not speak. Where am I? How did I get here? The boy was shocked. Who are these people? Have I been kidnapped? Soon, following a wave of dizziness, fragments of memory flashed across his mind. Yes, I'm in that toilet. The boy's name was Ma Junxiao. 1 year ago, he had been a normal high school student who was not very good at studying, liked to play games, looked average, and was extremely tall. But now he was a superstar professional player and one of the top players from the biggest gaming studio in the industry. His ID was Sky Swallowing Phantom Dawn. Recently, due to the competition, Phantom Dawn had been working the night shift. Of course, most of the time, he was sleeping inside the gaming hub. In the day, he did not need to stay at the company. As long as he stayed online for more than 3 hours a day, he could work from home. But at night, he still had to go to the headquarters to clock in at around 10 a.m. to prepare for the competition and then lie inside the company's equipment for the competition. At 7 a.m., like usual, Phantom Dawn left the company building. He bought breakfast on the way home and took the subway home. Even though 7 a.m. was the morning rush hour and it was common knowledge that the subway in City S could squeeze people into juice, Phantom Dawn did not go to work at that time, but got off work. The route that he took was the opposite of the crowded one. On average, there were only 7 or 8 people in each carriage. Therefore, when he got on the train, there was an empty seat for him. However, after 2 stops, Phantom Dawn suddenly felt uncomfortable. Perhaps it was because the breakfast he bought today was not clean. A wave of severe abdominal pain came without warning. Fortunately, the transit time was not long, and there was a toilet before he exited the station. Therefore, he quickly rushed out of the carriage at the next station and went straight to the public toilet in the subway station. This trip took nearly 2 hours. 2 hours later, Phantom Dawn, whose legs were weak, walked out from the toilet cubicle. In fact, in the last 20 minutes, his diarrhea had basically subsided. Otherwise, he might have called an ambulance. However, he had to spend another 20 minutes massaging his legs before he could regain the ability to stand. After he exited the toilet, Phantom Dawn walked to the sink. He took a long breath, washed his hands, and then lowered his head to wash his face. But as soon as he lowered his head, he lost consciousness. He could not remember the last part of his memory, but he was not dumb. Based on the situation before him, he had either been knocked out from behind or had his mouth and nose covered with anesthesia. My neck and neck did not feel any pain, but my head is a bit dizzy. After he calmed down, Phantom Dawn started to think. I'm 80% sure that I was knocked out by something like ether. His eyes scanned the 3 people. These 3, based on their size, they look like adults. It will be easy for them to carry me away. With that in mind, he looked around. At this moment, the place he was in seemed to be an unfinished house. There was almost no furniture in the empty room, but thick curtains were hung by the windows. The walls and ceiling were simply painted white, and the floor was made of concrete. As far as his eyes could see, the only furniture he could see was a simple foldable table, a few chairs, and a fluorescent light in the corner of the ceiling. The light was on, which meant that there was at least electricity in the house. Based on Phantom Dawn's analysis, there should be water as well, or else these people would not have gone outside to use the public toilet when they were holding him hostage, right? This is not good. After these people saw that I had woken up, they were as calm as ever. Looking around, Phantom Dawn thought to himself, based on what I've seen in the movies, those who would have this kind of reaction are either criminals, or both. Cold sweat broke out on his forehead. Speaking of which, why did they kidnap me in the first place? I am not a young girl, so they wouldn't kidnap me, right? Indeed, that was impossible, because if they really wanted to kidnap him, he would not have woken up naturally, but would have woken up in some other way. Robbery? That doesn't sound right. Phantom Dawn continued to think. My parents are both normal salaried workers. Even though my current salary is not bad, it is not so high that they would kidnap me, right? Indeed, the ransom reasoning did not make sense either. In terms of difficulty, kidnapping a child was obviously easier than kidnapping a high schooler. And in terms of profit, if they really wanted to kidnap an adult, they should have chosen someone from a rich family, like Jean Fugue. No matter how he thought about it, kidnapping Phantom Dawn was a difficult and low-reward job. Obviously, the three people who had targeted Phantom Dawn had other motives. Wait a minute. Could it be? Several seconds later, a more reliable thought crossed Phantom Dawn's mind. Could it be related to my competition at midnight? He finally got it. But even though he knew that, he did not have the ability to escape from danger. At that moment, there were still 12 hours and 53 minutes until the competition at midnight on the 16th. At the same time, back at the main office of regulation. I still can't get through. Meng Jingchan listened to the message that came from his phone. The number you have dialed is not available. His face was filled with confusion. Brother Zin was someone who did not like to bring work home with him, so he did not leave the company in the morning like the rest of Team 1. Instead, he switched to non-sleeping mode and completed the day's online requirement before he prepared to leave. This is troublesome. This was the 5th time Meng Jingchan had called Phantom Dawn's number in the past 40 minutes, but he could not get through. Coincidentally, when Phantom Dawn came to the company last night, he had forgotten to bring the key to his locker, so he had borrowed Brother Zen's locker. But this morning, when the kid returned home, he had forgotten to leave the key at the front desk, and he had taken it with him. As for Brother Zen, his car keys, house keys, wallet, and other miscellaneous items were all inside his jacket, and his jacket was inside the locker. Of course, the company definitely had a backup key to the locker, but because it involved personal privacy and other issues, the administrative process of applying for this thing was very troublesome. There was a period when it was very casual, but after a few theft and violation of personal privacy incidents, the administrative process was very strict, and it could take half a day. At that moment, Brother Zen had nothing but a phone with him, so naturally, he had to call Phantom Dawn's number to interrogate him. But he could not get through. Why don't we ask Team Leader what the kid's home phone number is? Brother Zen had not considered the worst possible scenario. The first thing that came to his mind was whether the kid had thrown his phone somewhere with a bad signal or lost it. Afternoon, 4:49 p.m. There were still 7 hours and 11 minutes until the competition on the 16th. Woo! After hearing the vibration, Feng Bujue, who was browsing the web, glanced at the phone on the table and saw an unfamiliar number. Is this some kind of scam or scam? Brother Ju grumbled as he picked up the phone to answer it. Even though he knew this was probably a prank call, he would still answer it. Basically, when Feng Bujue picked up this kind of call, he only needed to listen for 5 seconds to get the gist of the situation. Then he would hang up without a word and add the number to his blocked list. Brother Ju picked up the phone and said, "Hello, who is this?" Hello, is this Feng Bujue? A familiar voice came from the other side of the phone. Brother Ju quickly searched for the source of the voice in his mind. Hot Pot. Hey, even if you don't know my name, you can call me by my in-game nickname, right? Brother Zen was not angry, but he was a bit annoyed. What do you mean by Hot Pot? How did you get my number? Feng Bujue did not answer the question, but tossed out a question that he was more interested in. I am currently at the police station. The police told me. Meng Jingchan's answer was quite surprising. Oh, Feng Bujue answered before adding, you want me to bail you out after you've been caught for prostitution? Big brother. I really need to call you Big Brother now, Meng Jingchan said. How did you come to that conclusion? It's very simple. From the way you were hot pot, it gave me the impression that you frequented low-end brothels. Feng Bujue replied in a lazy tone. Then you said that you were at the police station, so you were probably caught in the middle of a prostitution crackdown. In your situation, if you inform your family, you basically have no way out. If you ask your unit leader to come and collect you, or ask your friends to bail you out, not to mention that you won't be able to raise your head in front of others in the future, the news will leak out sooner or later. So you thought of me. At this point, Meng Jingchan was silent for a full 30 seconds. Brother Feng, your analysis is not bad, but your bias toward me is too strong. Brother Zen said after a long silence. Fine, then tell me, what is it? Feng Bujue asked. It's like this, Meng Jingchan said. Phantom Dawn. He seems to have been kidnapped. Huh? Feng Bujue was startled. Have you called the police? They called the police this afternoon, Meng Jingchan said. Initially, they thought it was a missing person case. Furthermore, he was a young man, so the police did not pay much attention to it. But as you know, we have an important competition tonight. Therefore, our boss pulled some strings and pushed back the progress of the investigation. 1 hour ago, the police obtained the surveillance footage. Stop. Thank you. Feng Bujue interrupted him. Just tell me that the police have been called. That's enough. There's no need to waste time with me. Brother Feng, Brother Zin said. I'm calling you because I need your help. You need my help? Feng Bujue scoffed. Ha! What kind of help can I possibly provide? Then he said something very shameless. Even though I am a literary giant and have the ability of famous detective, it is more suitable for the police to handle this kind of case. He paused. Don't worry. The police in our country are very good when they are serious. Their investigative ability and execution ability are Brother Feng. At this time, Meng Jingchan suddenly lowered his voice and said to Brother Zen in a very serious tone, It's not that I don't trust their ability, but there's something going on here. Oh, Feng Bujue caught something in the man's tone. What do you mean by that? It's not convenient to talk about it over the phone. Can you come to the police station? Meng Jingchan replied. Feng Bujue thought about it for a few seconds. Sure. Before Brother Zen could respond, he asked, Give me the address. 30 minutes later, a silver Porsche stopped at the entrance of a police station in S City. 2 men got out of the car. One was Feng Bujue, and the other was Wang Tanji. Because they had contacted each other by phone, Meng Jingchan was waiting for them outside the reception hall. Hey, the 2 of you, come to the police station and drive a Porsche. As soon as the 3 of them finished greeting each other, Brother Zen complained. You don't have to say anything. I understand. We have always been so low-key, Feng Bujue replied calmly. In a sense, he was right. Compared with the other cars in Xiao Tan's house, this one was very low-key, whether in color or price. Haha. Okay. Brother Zen really didn't know how to continue the conversation, so he simply changed the subject. By the way, time is limited. Let's get down to business first. Then he pulled Brother Zen and Xiao Tan to the side mysteriously. They stood in a corner outside the room where there was no one around. I will only tell you this. Meng Jingchan was obviously a clever person. He knew that what he was about to say would not reach the ears of Phantom Dawn's family or any of the police officers. Actually, I have great faith in the police, but before I called you, I accidentally overheard the deputy director talking on the phone in the toilet. At this point, he looked around cautiously and lowered his voice. The sound in the toilet was muffled, and I could hear the voice on the phone. He paused for half a second and looked into the eyes of the 2 men. I have no idea who was on the other end of the phone, but I clearly heard him instructing the deputy director to try to delay the investigation, and he said that it had to be delayed until at least 2 a.m. Chapter 1063. Going back in time, let us review what happened before Meng Jingchan contacted Feng Bujue. When Brother Zen called Phantom Dawn's home, it was around 11:20 a.m., and Phantom Dawn's mother was at home. After some communication, they realized that Phantom Dawn had left the company at 7 a.m., but he had not returned home. He had not called home. If this was any other day, they would not have thought so much about it. After all, Phantom Dawn was already 17, and he was a boy. Normally, they would not have thought about kidnapping. Even his family believed that the boy had probably lost his phone and had gone to report it to the police. However, that day was not a normal day. It was the day of a crucial match. Meng Jingchan could sense that something was not right about this. For Brother Zen's habit of drinking hot water and the catchphrase, "Don't look at me like this now, I used to be like this, so and so." It was clear that this was a young man with plenty of social experience. For the sake of security, he went to the top management of regulation to report this. After all, he was a celebrity player, so his words carried some weight. Furthermore, his suspicion was not without reason. Regulation's higher management soon realized the severity of the situation, and this uneasy atmosphere started to fester as time passed. At 2 p.m., Phantom Dawn was still uncontactable. By then, his family naturally noticed the change in the situation, and they were more worried than anyone else. Therefore, they reported the case. Brother Zen was Phantom Dawn's colleague and one of the last few people who had interacted with him, so they shared a good personal relationship. Therefore, Meng Jingchan voluntarily went to the police station to help with the investigation. Unfortunately, things did not progress as smoothly as he had expected. It was not like when you went to the police station to report a case, a whole team of police officers would jump into your case to collect evidence and solve the case in a few hours. Only cases that involved serious crimes like robbery and murder would have this kind of treatment. Normal cases of money theft, especially those that were not that big, and this kind of missing person, non-child, male missing for less than a day, were different. Did you know how many small cases of money theft happened every year? Some of the victims didn't even report the case because they knew that even if they did, the items would most likely not be recovered. And the number of missing persons every year. Let's put it this way. The number of people who go missing every year in our country is probably as many as the number of mobile phones that go missing. To put it simply, for this type of case, when reporting a case like this, all they had to do was to make a record and then wait. It was hard to say how long he would have to wait. Of course, the investigation work would still be carried out as usual. It was just that there were not many people and the efficiency was not high. What? You want them to set up a task force for you and send 2 teams of people to take turns to watch the video for you, do fieldwork, and analyze the case? That's fine. You just have to know the bureau chief or even the director. As mentioned earlier, Ma Ju and Xiao's parents were both salaried workers. To put it more simply, they were just ordinary people. He didn't have a right to speak or any special privileges. Furthermore, he was not a big shot himself. If you had to call him a public figure, the title of celebrity player was at most a second or third-rate actor in the eyes of the law enforcement. In conclusion, the progress of the investigation was quite urgent. There was a 20-minute queue to report the case. After the queue was over, there was only one officer who was responsible for handling the case. When Phantom Dawn's parents and Brother Chan finished explaining the situation, it was almost 3:30 p.m. Only then did the police prepare to go and get the surveillance around the office building. Seeing this, Brother Chan had no other choice. He had to use his connections as well. Therefore, he contacted the company's upper management, and they did not say anything. Wasn't it just using connections? Don't worry, we have connections. From tycoons to ruffians, to be able to reach the top of the industry, one had to have connections, or, in other words, connections. Phantom Dawn's significance to the competition was self-explanatory. This was directly related to the profit of the studio. Even if he was treated as an asset, using connections was worth it. However, in less than 10 minutes after Meng Jingchan made the call, the task force left. These days, as long as you had someone above you, everything was easy. You don't have enough manpower, right? Get the officers who are resting at home to work overtime. Why are they on call 24 hours a day? To serve the people. After 4 p.m., the investigation progressed rapidly. The station sent 7 or 8 people to watch the surveillance, and the route before the disappearance was quickly found. Another 5 police cars were sent out to follow Phantom Dawn's route after work, interrogating witnesses. Working from both sides, the police soon circled the time of the disappearance and locked onto a white van and 3 suspects. Basically, they could confirm that this was a kidnapping case. However, just as Brother Chan sighed in relief and was about to hide inside the toilet cubicle to take a dump or smoke a cigarette, something that made him shiver happened. This matter was truly a coincidence on top of a coincidence. Brother Chan was someone who liked to squat down, and the toilet that he was in was filled with sitting toilets. Therefore, he squatted down on the edge of the toilet. He had just squatted down and was about to light his cigarette when he heard a sound coming from outside the cubicle. It sounded like someone had walked into the toilet. When the person walked in, he was already on the phone. He lowered his voice and said, "Why are you calling now? I'm at the station. It's not convenient for me to talk," he said as he walked into the cubicle. Then, without thinking about it, he locked the door from the inside. After locking the door, he took several steps to the side and peered into the cubicles one by one to see if there was anyone inside. Probably due to his guilty conscience, the man instinctively used one hand to hold the phone and the other to cover his mouth to block the sound. This meant that he did not have the free hand to turn the cubicle door handle. If he did not turn the handle, he would not be able to open the cubicle door. Since he could not open the cubicle door, he had to look from the bottom, and Brother Chan was squatting on the toilet. His feet could not be seen from the outside. Through a series of coincidences, Meng Jingchan had successfully started eavesdropping. "All right, there's no one around. You can speak now." After the man finished his inspection, he stood beside the sink and raised his voice. When Meng Jingchan heard the man's first two sentences, he thought that the man had received a call from his mistress. But after listening for 30 seconds, Brother Chan was shocked. The man standing outside the cubicle had the surname Zheng. He was the deputy bureau chief of this branch, and the unknown person who called him was instructing him to delay the investigation. Judging from Deputy Bureau Chief Zheng's tone, he had either accepted a bribe or had information that could be used against him. In short, he should be preparing to do as he was told. Anyway, delaying the investigation was not difficult to implement, and the risk after implementing it was not high either, because this kind of behavior was difficult to define after the fact. What was delaying? Delaying could also be said to be cautious. If excessive caution led to delay the investigation, could that be called delaying? Even if it led to bad consequences in the end, what evidence did one have to say that this kind of delaying was intentional? About 2 minutes later, Deputy Bureau Chief Zheng finished his call, and Brother Chan, who was in the cubicle, his pants were half off, and his feet were on the edge of the toilet. He was half squatting, holding a cigarette in one hand and a lighter in the other. He maintained this posture and did not even dare to breathe loudly. Not only did he want to smoke, but he also wanted to defecate. After Deputy Bureau Chief Zheng hung up the phone, he washed his hands in front of the sink and looked in the mirror. Then, he turned around, and maybe it was because of his many years of experience in criminal investigation, or maybe it was because of his suspicious nature, but he suddenly wanted to open all the cubicle doors and confirm it again. Click! Soon he opened the door of the cubicle next to Brother Chan's and glanced inside. There was no one. Then his footsteps came to the cubicle door in front of Brother Chan. At that moment, Meng Jingchan's heart was in his throat. The only thing he could think of was to pretend that he was deaf and mute, so that he could fool Deputy Bureau Chief Zheng for the time being. Bang, bang, bang. Just as Deputy Bureau Chief Zheng was about to open the door of the second cubicle, someone knocked on the door of the cubicle. "Hey, who's inside? Open the door." A man's voice came from outside. "Who closed the cubicle door? Hurry up and open the door." From his tone, it sounded like he was in a hurry. Deputy Bureau Chief Zheng heard this and pursed his lips. He quickly walked over and opened the door of the cubicle. "Move, move." The person who came in was not a police officer, and he did not know the Deputy Bureau Chief. The man pushed Deputy Bureau Chief Zheng away and ran to the first cubicle. When he closed the door of the cubicle, he was still cursing. "How dare you lock the door of a public cubicle? F*CKU. Then there was the sound of thunder and fire in the cubicle, and there was a smell that made people wish they were dead. A few seconds later, the man let out a sigh of relief. Before he could finish, Deputy Bureau Chief Zheng had already covered his nose and ran away from the cubicle, and Meng Jingchan, with the help of Brother Sanji, had narrowly escaped the disaster. Back to the present, in the waiting hall of the police station. It had been 40 minutes since Feng Bujue's team arrived. During that time, Meng Jingchan first told them about his previous experience and what he knew. Then, he brought Brother Ju and Xiao Tan to greet Phantom Dawn's parents and introduce them as Xiao Zhao's friends. Then, Feng Bujue went to make a few phone calls alone. At 6:20 p.m., a black Phaeton stopped at the entrance of the police station, and a man got out from the passenger seat. The man was wearing a black suit. He had a straight face and a serious expression. When he walked past Xiao Tan's silver Porsche, he glanced at it from the corner of his eye before moving on. Soon, he walked into the waiting hall. His eyes scanned the place, and his gaze met Brother Ju's. "Yo, Master Bao, you're here. Feng Bujue walked forward with a smile and greeted this secret agent from 9 subjects. I say. Bao Qing did not stand on ceremony with him and replied directly. The Porsche at the entrance belongs to Xiao Tan, right? Yes, Xiao Tan replied instantly. You know you'll get a ticket for parking there, right? So, that was what Bao Qing was worried about. It was Brother Ju who told me to park there. Xiao Tan replied. Don't worry, OL Bao. Feng Bujue smiled. The more expensive a car is, the less people will dare to put a ticket on it when it's parked in front of the law enforcement office. Even though your relationship with the law enforcement office has always been tense, is it really okay for you to stand in their office and insult them like that? Bao Qing narrowed his eyes. Hee. Then, let's do a social experiment when we have time. Let's see who will put a ticket on it. Feng Bujue shrugged. Let me tell you, whoever dares to put a ticket on it will be a pillar of society. Okay. Bao Qing did not want to talk nonsense with him. He waved his hand and said, let's get down to business first. To cut the long story short, they chatted for a while before Feng Bujue introduced Bao Qing to Brother Chan. Then, Bao Qing showed her identification to one of the police officers. 5 minutes later, the 4 of them were sitting in the bureau chief's office. After entering the office, Bao Qing greeted the bureau chief and showed his ID again. Then, he handed over his cell phone. After the bureau chief took the cell phone, he walked into the room next door. At this point, Meng Jingchan was basically in a state where his brain had short-circuited. He could no longer remain calm when he looked at Feng Bujue and the others. This, Brother Bao. Brother Chan asked curiously, may I know where you are working? Civil servant. Bao Qing only answered with 2 words. Brother Zin naturally wanted to ask for an answer that was equivalent to not saying anything. Specifically, you mean civil servant? Bao Qing smiled and looked at Meng Jingchan. He repeated these 3 words with emphasis. With Brother Chan's intelligence, he understood that there was no need to ask anymore. Speaking of which, who was on the other end of the phone? Feng Bujue turned to look at Bao Qing and asked. On the other end of the phone, it was a person who has the power to decide many things, Bao Qing replied. And the person who has the power to decide many things just chatted with an acquaintance 10 minutes ago. Oh, Feng Bujue said, so he is now talking to the bureau chief. It seems that they have finished talking. When Bao Qing said this, the bureau chief pushed open the door from the next room. Sir. The bureau chief walked in front of Bao Qing with a serious face. Next, what do you plan to do? Before Bao Qing could answer, Feng Bujue, who was sitting on the sofa with his legs crossed, said, package all the investigation information so far and send it to the computer here. Also, ask Zheng to be on standby in the interrogation room. He finished quickly and added, oh, by the way, don't forget to confiscate his phone as soon as possible. Seeing this, Meng Jingchan looked at his brother Ju in shock and complained in his mind, hey, that's too arrogant. However, the bureau chief didn't have much of a reaction. After listening to him, he just looked at Bao Qing silently. Master Bao sighed and said to the bureau chief, just do as he says. Chapter 1064. On that day, the humans finally remembered the horror of being dominated by the lack of updates. As a preview for the beginning of the month, after 2 months of full attendance, this kind of opening was indeed sarcastic. It could be said that it was done, beautifully done. That's right, the day of being able to update as much as you want has arrived. The clouds have parted to see the moon. Wow. No, it should be... Then, since everyone has accumulated enough rage points, let's get back to the main topic. First, I have some good news. The physical book of Thriller Paradise will be released on November 5th. The first volume will start from the beginning of the novel and end with the 7 unthinkable thoughts on campus. There will be a picture of the author and a preface. Those who are interested can get their hands on it. P.S. Due to the fact that there are many distributors, please be careful of piracy. Then, it will be about the manga and the side stories. Many people already know about this, but there might still be some who don't know. Don't worry, I won't let those who don't know ask those who do know. I will repeat it here. The manga version of Thriller Paradise has been serialized on my public WeChat account. The source of the artwork is provided by Good Comics, and it is much better than the pirated version found online. Of course, the speed of the manga on my side will not exceed the speed of the magazine itself. Other than that, the only side story of the book so far, Thriller Paradise, Halloween Adventure, has also been serialized on my public WeChat account. There will be one chapter per day, and you can read it by clicking on keywords or history. Then, the last piece of good news is this month, I'm not that interested in the monthly ticket, so there is no need to save a ticket for me. You can vote for whoever you want. Now, that's all for now. It's time to talk about the plot. I just took a look at last month's preview. It said the finals of S2 will begin at the end of October. Haha, that is nonsense. Compared to the current me, the me from last month is nothing. Just like how the me from 5 seconds later is stronger than the me from 5 seconds ago, or how the me who typed the last few words is stronger than the me who typed the beginning of the sentence. Humans are creatures that grow with time. Only by getting away from their weak selves in the past can they continue to challenge their limits. In other words, at this moment, I can confirm that the finals of S2 will begin at the beginning of November. Yes, that must be it. All right, that's about it for this preview. After all, there will be a lot of major plot changes in the finals. It would be pointless to reveal any of them. I still need to chase after my stronger self. Let's meet next month. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.